on Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Back at the VMAC for Seahawks training camp after a day off yesterday. And I guess for us, a day off on Monday as well.
Yeah.
Even though there was a mock game. It was a day off for us.
That's correct.
The countdown to Sunday night's first preseason game continues, 5 p.m. in Los Angeles. I'm assuming that soccer stadium is in Los Angeles. Somewhere in Los Angeles. I don't know exactly where it is. There'll be like 25,000 people, 20,000 people in a 32,000-seat facility or something like that. The Seahawks will finally get to play not a real game, but a game where we can actually evaluate a little bit better than we can from training camp touch, two-hand touch, as Hugh Millen calls it. And today all morning we're going to ask the question, including in our first segment, who you are most curious to see as the Seahawks take on the L.A. Chargers.
I like how the wording came about on that. Curious.
Yeah,
like
you got it. Yeah. Well, it's important because it may not be excited, it may not be anxious, it may not be the most intriguing. Well, intriguing might be the right word, but it may not mean an optimistic look at somebody. It may be something more pessimistic. Depends on where you stand on some of these guys. But we will ask that question all morning today, and that will be the question that gets you the 50-yard line seats to see the Seahawks and the Cardinals in Week 17, 16th game of the regular season. Other headlines, great news last night. I don't know how they did it, but they fell 5-1 down. They fell 6-2 down, but rally did they? Your go-go Mariners, your Seattle Mariners, behind Leonis Martin's 10th inning home run, caps the comeback, the 26th comeback of the season. The Mariners win 7-6. They get help from everyone around them. Kansas City loses. Tampa Bay loses. New York loses. The Mariners are now tied for the wild card, and I've been waiting to do this all year. Are you ready, Slick Hawk?
Okay.
If the season ended today, which it doesn't, and it's stupid to even talk about, the Mariners would be, I'm not even sure what, in a two-game playoff to get to the one-game playoff, something like that?
It depends on which number, if they draw the A, B, or C, which letter they draw.
Oh, my God.
It's a whole tie-breaking scenario, but yes.
Oh, my God. They're 2 games over 500. They're tied for the wild card as of August the 9th. They've got one more in Oakland before Edgar's big weekend here, which all of us are excited about. 12:35 today, I believe. Yvonne Gallardo against Jarrell Cotton. Who's Jarrell Cotton? He's a young 5-8 pitcher with a 5.48 ERA. In 16 starts this year, the Oakland Athletics, when he's on the mound, are 6-10. And they beat the Mariners, one of those 6, on April the 22nd in a Jarrell Cotton start. M's top prospect, Kyle Lewis, with another homer from Modesto. That's 5 home runs and 13 RBIs in just 15 games for our guy in high A ball, top prospect Kyle Lewis. Legendary baseball umpire Joe West suspended 3 games for remarks he made to the USA Today about Adrian Beltre. He called him the biggest complainer. He said he once said to him, "You may be a great ball player, but you're the worst umpire in the league. You stink." Beltre said yesterday that the suspension was not necessary and the 64-year-old ump was just kidding. But suspended he is.
I didn't see that story.
Interesting NFL note. The New England Patriots become the first team to purchase private jets for away travel. 2 Boeing 767s, retrofitted with all first-class seats, the Patriots logo on the outside, and 5 Lombardi trophies on the tail. The Patriots have 2 brand new, well, they're not new, but 2 new to them, 767s. How about Josh Rosen of UCLA, the quarterback, and what he said, and it's getting a lot of chatter. Human beings don't belong in school with our schedule, says Josh Rosen. No one in their right mind should have a football player's schedule and go to school. He went on to say, raise the SAT requirement in Alabama, and see what kind of team they would have. Football and school don't go together, says Josh Rosen, the quarterback for Jim Mora. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do two full-time jobs. The PGA Championship begins tomorrow morning at Quail Hollow in Charlotte. Rory McIlroy is the very slightest of betting favorites at 7-1. Jordan Spieth is 8-1 to complete the career Grand Slam. Slickhawk, your first trivia question of the morning.
All right.
How many guys, and name them, have completed the career Grand Slam? And don't trip up. There's a tricky one in this. There's a trick in this question.
Okay.
There's a guy that everybody would say has won the career Grand Slam, but never won the career Grand Slam. So to be careful, don't step in the trap.
All right. Well, Tiger had a Tiger Slam, so it starts there.
He had 3 of them. He won the career Grand Slam 3 times over. Well, because he's won all 4 majors at least 3 times.
That's crazy.
So he's won 3 career Grand Slams, as has somebody else, Jack Nicklaus. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The others won't be so easy.
Really? If you give me the number, maybe, and I can try to name him.
Gene Sarazen.
Wouldn't have got him.
Ben Hogan.
Okay, I would have probably got him.
Gary Player.
Oh.
They're
No
the
Arnold
5.
Palmer.
That's the tricky one.
Wow.
No Arnold Palmer.
Which championship did he not win?
The one that's starting tomorrow.
He never won a PGA.
Never won a PGA. Everybody in their right mind thinks that Arnold Palmer won the career Grand Slam. Never did it. Tom Watson. Never did it.
Huh.
Phil Mickelson.
Well,
never did it. Lee Trevino. Never did it. Jordan Spieth could do it starting tomorrow. And sad news from the world of football. Former Syracuse University and Patriots head coach Dick McPherson, who coached you, and I knew a little bit, passed away yesterday at the age of 86.
I have a piece of news.
To add to the update, to the headlines?
Yes, to add to the headlines.
Yeah.
From the Twitter of Michael Silver, Devontae Freeman and the Falcons have agreed to a 5-year contract extension that makes him the NFL's highest-paid running back.
Yeah, okay. They don't pay running backs anymore. At least that's what people tell me.
Yeah.
But good for Devontae Freeman and the Atlanta Falcons. Go ahead, hit the button.
Wilson airing it deep, looking for Person. The end zone, the pass is juggled, and it is caught.
Kaepernick is in trouble. Ball's out. Recovered by Bennett.
Your home for the 12th man in the NFL is live from the VMAC for Seahawks training camp.
This 12th man factors in, no doubt.
Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Not cold, Hubie. It's not cold, but it's foggy.
Well,
gray.
We've got this smoke that's still lingering in the atmosphere that
Yeah.
kind of gums up some of the assessment in that regard. You know, you'd say it's hazy. You'd say it, if you didn't know the temperature, it looks like it could be a November day that is going to sprinkle all day, right?
Yeah. I don't think it is, though.
I don't think it is. You're at training camp on a Wednesday morning. We're back here. It's the Wednesday before the Sunday. The guys get out and really get a chance to hit somebody on Sunday, not including their teammates, of course.
Yeah.
Which the Seahawks are known to do every once in a while. And we start the process of kind of working towards the end of the week today. And in so doing, I talked to you a little bit about it back on Monday when we were developing poll questions for the week. I told you that at some point this week, today's the day, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask Slickhawk, I'm going to ask all that are listening and all that are willing to participate, because I think this is even a more fascinating, multi-pronged question, or multi-pronged answer anyway, that has been in many years. Now, I know I probably find myself, I'll bet you that Slickhawk could go back to our shows on This Week in previous years and find me probably saying the exact same thing about each and every year. But I just feel like this year there are very, very interesting, for good reasons and bad reasons and all kinds of multi-reasons, different players that I'm eager and curious to watch in game action on Sunday, even though the game doesn't matter. I put together the poll question, and I, as I told you on Monday, I I took some time to think about what word I wanted to use, because I could have said, which player are you most excited to see on Sunday, right? I could have said, which player are you most intrigued to see on Sunday? I didn't want to imply with the question optimism or pessimism. I wanted to give you an open canvas. I mean, if I said to you that my guy, and it's not my guy, and I don't even know whether he's going to be even available and whether he's even going to play on Sunday. But let's assume that I chose as the answer to my question Luke Jokel.
Right.
Okay? Luke Jokel, to me, is very intriguing and very curious. I'm eager to see him play. I don't know if it's going to be on Sunday or when it's going to be. I wouldn't have said, if the question were, who are you most excited to see on Sunday? I don't think I could ever answer Luke Jokel. I'm intrigued. I'm curious to see Luke Jokel, but I'm not necessarily excited to see Luke Jokel. If you asked me if my answer was Earl Thomas after what happened last year, getting back on the playing field and potentially playing who would have given him a chance to play an exhibition game number 1 when he got hurt last year and he was talking retirement?
Yeah.
He might be a guy that I'm both curious and excited to see play. So the question today, and we could start it this morning earlier than we normally do, is who are you curious to see on Sunday in the Chargers-Seahawks game number 1?
Well, I would focus on 2. Are you going to pin me down on 1?
At some point this morning, not in this segment, I won't pin you down by 1, but I think that there are several. I could be pinned down to 8.
8. Well, there's
8.
I could certainly list you 8. But,
yeah.
But I'll give you 2 right now.
Okay.
Ethan Posick and Shaq Griffin.
The 2 newcomers.
The 2 newcomers.
And for what reason?
Well, they're high picks, and they ostensibly would have the greatest impact of any of the draft picks. You know, they're young guys. You're not paying them much for a while. If they can give you really quality play, hitting on draft picks is so vital because of the structure. You know, you can't have your whole roster on their second contracts.
Right.
You've got to have guys in their first contracts that are giving you. And obviously when they won the Super Bowl, you know, nowhere would that be more embodied than then when Russ was still on his rookie contract, and you know, Sherman, Cam, and Earl, and you know, maybe you're going to tell me one or 2 of those guys were already into their second, but for the most part, that was a extremely well structured. It was almost, when the Seahawks were playing in 2013, it was almost as if they had 5 downs to get a first down. I mean, they just had an advantage over every team in the league because they were so deep. Their special teams, everything was so talented. They weren't confronting any financial real battles in any assessment about personnel. They could just snatch up all the guys they wanted to have the deepest roster they could have. They had the best defensive line rotation, and I don't say that subjectively. I say that objectively in terms of you take the snap counts. How many guys had within 80% of the most snaps? They had double the next closest, which was the Giants that year. They had it all, and a big part of what they had was a enviable salary structure. And so now, of course, reality hits, and you have to, make some tough choices. You can't keep the Bruce Irvins of the world. There's other tough choices that have had to be made, but you got to now start hitting on draft picks from 2010 to 2012. That'll go down literally. They'll be talking about that period years from now. The way they talk about the 1986 49er draft or the 74 Steeler draft, they'll be talking about that era, 2010 you get 17 starters and 8 Pro Bowlers in a 3-year period, and the nucleus of a team that goes, 4 straight years leading the NFL in points allowed defensively, obviously fewest points, then follow it up in your second last year. Maybe they might have been third, but this is a real era that people can point to, but they haven't had the success. Now
No.
you'd say that their roster was already littered with guys that they had hit on, but any reasonable assessment say, well, let's say their batting average, by any reasonable assessment, even taking into account that so many other positions have been filled by the great picks, from before. You got to pick it back up. Let's ramp that graph back up.
Yeah.
It was on a steady, a steep incline in terms of their success rate. Kind of has plateaued. Now let's ramp that thing back up. Posick and Griffin would be two guys.
You choose two very interesting guys for a lot of reasons. I think what might even make it more interesting on Sunday with regard to those two guys is that there's a chance, I would imagine, with Jermaine Ifedi not having practiced since the punch, essentially. We'll see if he's out there today. With Jeremy Lane banged up. Yeah, I think that there was a better than good chance that both of those guys would have come in the second team and played against the Chargers, presumably second, maybe even third teams. And so while you would have gotten a look at Posick, he would have probably replaced Ifedi in the second quarter or late in the first quarter. And Shaq Griffin probably would have replaced Jeremy Lane in the second quarter or maybe beyond. And you would have seen them but playing up against backups and backup quarterbacks and so forth. And yet, with the two injuries, Lane and whatever the injury is to Ifedi, there's a chance that you might see Posick, the two guys that you circled, in there right from the get-go, which would give you even more of an indication of where they are. I'm assuming you're going to tell me that I'd rather see Shaq Griffin out there against, what's the guy's name, the receiver from Cal that you told me not to take?
Kenny Lawler? Oh, no. You're talking
for the Chargers?
Oh,
the receiver from Cal, their best receiver. I'm running a blank on
Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen? Isn't he on the Chargers?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you'd rather see Shaq Griffin up against Keenan Allen than you would like to see him up against whoever their fourth receiver is trying to make the football team.
And I don't know. Hopefully Phillip Rivers plays at least a couple of series. Phillip Rivers is going to be a line of scrimmage. So let's see. I got 25 on my right, or I got this rookie on my left, 26.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to have Rivers take a couple shots at him?
Yeah, You mean as a Seahawks fan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I want Phillip Rivers to attack him.
Yeah, and let's see.
And let's see. Put him under the gun right off the bat.
So there's a lot of guys, and I'll bring Slickhawk into the conversation at 16 or 17 after 6 o'clock. Tell you about the show today. We've got montages. We're going to talk a lot about Hughes' coach who passed away yesterday at the age of 86. Coach McPherson, Dick McPherson, coached Hugh at the Patriots. I knew him when I was at Syracuse. We were at Syracuse at the same time. Seahawks at 7 with Greg Bell. We'll count down to exhibition game number 1, Daily Schnoz's Training Camp Edition and Fantasy Football League bonus information. KJ Wright will join us today as he does every exhibition season. Hugh's got something to say at 8 o'clock. The phone poll at 8:30, maybe even at 8:45 as well on the texting line. Great debates, 12th man roundtables as well on 950 KJR. I just think, now Hugh circled 2, I just think that there are, for lots of different reasons, I wrote down just a few. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I wrote down 10 guys.
Wow.
As possibilities that you could make a pretty strong case.
I promise
could
you,
be
I'm
the
interested
answer
to see all those 10 without even seeing.
I know,
list.
and you could make curious. You could be curious to see what. I was thinking about this in the shower this morning. Russell Wilson. I put Russell Wilson on the list. Now he's going to play very little, but he's going to look, for the people that haven't been seeing him out there, he's going to look different to you. He's going to look svelte. When was the last time, considering that he got stepped on in the first game against Miami? When was the last time we saw Russell Wilson run around like the old Russell Wilson? It's 18 months. You got to go back to the playoffs of like, you got to go back to like the Carolina game a year and a half ago. We haven't seen Russell Wilson play like Russell Wilson since Ndamukong Suh stepped on his foot, and then the next week or 2 weeks later he got hurt again, the knee, and that was the end of the Russell Wilson that we knew and fell in love with from years past. So I said Russell Wilson could be a guy that you're curious to see or exciting to see. Eddie Lacy, come on. I don't need to describe why you'd be curious to see Eddie Lacy on Sunday. Chris Carson. The world has been talking about Chris Carson, this running back that nobody even knows about. People would be curious to see. I said Luke Jokel for other reasons. Ethan Posick. The new wide receivers. If you haven't been enthralled with the Seahawks wide receivers the last few years, You might want to see Darbo. You might be curious to see Grayson. You might be curious to see Moore.
Paul Richardson.
Can
he really step up and be the replacement for Curse? Right now, he's running ahead of – Curse is not running at X anymore.
It's Paul Richardson.
Curse is running number 2 Z. It's Richardson's X. They've moved Curse over.
And they've got other names like Darbo, Moore, and Grayson that you may want to take a look at for the first time. In Moore's case, he's gotten a lot of publicity this training camp.
More than Darbo.
Shaq Griffin, you just mentioned all the great reasons. Earl Thomas, are you not curious to see him back at back there running around a little bit for maybe a play or two? And then how about Blair Walsh? You want to see Blair Walsh kick field goals? Want to see if he can make field goals?
How about the linebacker? How about the Sam? You know, they've got a very competitive situation.
I just marked down these to name a few. There are lots of possibilities of why you would be curious to see the Seahawks in game action on Sunday. Quickly, Slick Hawk. I'll give you you kind of weaseled out and took 2 on me today. At least for now. I told him he could take 2. He's going to have to whittle it down to 1. What about you? What about you on Sunday?
I'm doing this. I have 2. It's Lacey and it's Griffin.
Lacey and Griffin.
Those are my
we
2.
all want to see Shaq Griffin.
Yeah.
We're all curious to see Shaq Griffin.
Well, I've seen him a lot in practice, and I like what I've seen, and people are kind of buzzing about him.
Yeah.
But I want to see what he does against, other competition, like you mentioned, especially if he gets to go against Keenan Allen. That's a nice little test for his first preseason game.
Yeah, and I would imagine that if he's out there in the first team, right?
Yeah. Which if Jeremy Lane doesn't play, he should be.
That's right. They're not going to play Richard Sherman against one particular guy. They're going to put Sherman on the quarterback's right and on the defense's left. And you would assume that Keenan Allen, if he's playing, their top-tier receiver, could go over to Shaq Griffin's side a couple of times.
Sure.
And, hey, here we go. Let's see the young man play.
Or Tyrell Williams.
Hopefully Rivers will go right at him with Keenan Allen. We'll get a chance to see what Shaq Griffin brings to the table. Anyway, all kinds of intrigue, even though the game doesn't matter. And my guess is by about the third quarter, everybody will be wondering, why was I excited for this like I am? I think when the game starts and you're watching these individual players, maybe not the team because the team's success or results don't matter, the individuals that we're talking about should be very interesting to our eye as Seahawks fans. All right, let's get it started. We're live at the VMAC. We're back here. Seahawks at 7 in 38 minutes from right now. Seahawks insider Greg Bell on everything we need to know. Let's get the morning montage rolling. KJ Wright's going to be our guest and a chance to win 50-yard line seats to see the
morning montage with Mitch in the morning.
Oh, my goodness! Brought to you by Washington's Lottery. Visit walottery.com.
I love it. La La Land plays from back in the studio. We're at the VMAC, sitting right next to the field as we get ready for the resumption of training camp. And we count you down to kickoff between the Seahawks and the Chargers from Los Angeles in exhibition game number 1. The morning montage from the Carter Volkswagen studio is headlined by a tremendous comeback from the hometown 9. They fell down 5-1. They fell down 6-2. 5 unanswered, capped by Ben. Sorry. I was going to give Ben Gamble the credit, although he had a great game. Leonis Martin gets the credit for the game-winning home run in 10th inning. Here's the way it sounded on Root Sports.
Off the hands, a flare into center. Davis is able to make the catch. Here comes Gamble. Throw home, play at the plate. This game is tied. High lift out to right field. This ball is gone. Mariners have the lead. Leonis Martin gives the Mariners the lead for the first time tonight, and it comes in the 10th inning. Diaz, the 1-2. Into right field, Martin does not have to move much. What a win tonight for the Mariners. They come back down 6-2. They win it in 10, 7-6 the final.
Unbelievable. Where do I begin on this one, Slickhawk?
Oh, my God.
I guess we could begin.
Ariel Miranda, probably.
Well, I don't want to begin there. He's no good. Well, we can point out that another game that the Mariners win where they get far from a quality start on the hill from this bunch of misfits, along with James Paxton, they're going to try to pitch the Seattle Mariners into the postseason.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Ben Gamble. I was thinking about Ben Gamble as I was driving in. Is there any more stunning Mariners story this year than Ben frickin' Gamble? I mean, who thought that Ben Gamble was anything at the start of the season?
No.
I can raise my hand and say I never gave two thoughts to Ben Gamble at the beginning of the season. And then he got off to this great start once they started to play him, and you thought, okay, everybody has a stretch in baseball. But he keeps going. I mean, he keeps making plays with his legs. He keeps making plays in the outfield. He keeps I believe he's still over 300 as a hitter. At what point do we actually take Ben Gamble seriously?
I mean, I guess we have to now. It's August 9th.
Is it legit? Is he a legit 300 type of hitter? And the play last night that I just want to talk about was the one you just played. I was,
where he tags up?
Yeah. So it's 7-6. Sorry, it's 6-5. The Mariners are behind. They blow a chance the inning before with Kyle Seager up with the first and third and one out. They blow the chance to tie. I think it was first and third and one out.
Yeah.
And the next inning they've got Gamble on third in a 6-5 game in the eighth, top of the eighth, and whoever it was hits a bloop to center field. Now, if you're the base runner there on a bloop to center field, right at the center fielder, but the center fielder's coming in to see if he can make the catch. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty difficult play for the base runner. Do you stay off the bag? If you stay on the bag and assume he's going to catch it and you tag, you may not be able to tag because it's so shallow and the guy's coming in on a dead run. He's going to have a dead running start and a shallow ball to throw you out at the catcher. Do you stay off the bag in hopes that it falls? And if it falls, you're off the bag and you're far enough off the bag to make it home for the tying run. So it was kind of an in-between play.
Yep.
And the guy's on his horse. And when he catches that ball, he's not far from second base. It's short center field by the time he catches that ball on a dead run towards the plate. And what are you saying to yourself? If I pause the world at that moment when he makes the catch, what are you as a Mariners fan saying to yourself?
You don't have to pause the world. I was yelling, "Go, go, go!"
Okay.
I wanted him.
Did you think
A's defense is so bad?
Okay, but did you think he would go?
I didn't think he would go.
I didn't think he would go either. Even though the A's have a bad outfield, when I realized how short in center field and on the dead run that catch was made, I was saying to myself, God, I hope he goes, but I don't think he's going to go. And he took a shot. They took a shot, and with pure hustle, he beats the throw. He ties the game. He allows it to go to extra innings, and then Leonis Martin comes through with the home run to right to win it. And then there's Sugar on the mound who made it an adventure in the bottom half of the 10th. Boy, he couldn't find the strike zone with a compass and a map, but he was able to get it done, and the Mariners are now in the wild card, the second position of the wild card. They're tied with both the Rays and the Kansas City Royals. All right, Adam Gase on Jay Cutler.
Same when I saw him last time. He was good. Remembers basically everything with the offense, and the biggest thing for him was just kind of getting that feel with the rush. It's one thing to throw when we're routes on air or one-on-ones, but to get in there and be able to take some reps with the line in there and, just be able to see everything kind of develop and our players' body language, how they run routes. I mean, that's the biggest difference for them, and just kind of getting that feel back in the pass rush.
Jay Cutler on his first practice.
It's a kind of a crash course if you already took the course before. Some of the run game stuff's changed. Passing games is kind of relatively the same. Protections, they change up a little bit. So, just kind of working with Bo out there and just going through the run game and making sure I'm clean on that. But it'll come back quickly.
Jets defensive lineman Sheldon Richardson schwacked Brandon Marshall verbally, his former Jets receiver, the other day. Todd Bowles, the coach of the Jets, has plenty to say about Sheldon Richardson.
My thoughts on it, they know how I feel. We've addressed it. I really don't have time for a bunch of BS that happened a year ago. We had 6 months to talk about it. All that over. He's been well informed of that, and we move on from there. We've moved on from there, believe me. We've had team discussions, individual discussions, and we've moved on.
You mean Sheldon's been informed?
Everybody's been informed. He's been informed. Everyone's been informed.
Since yesterday?
That's when it happened.
Well, I mean, he's kind of said it over and over and over again.
I don't have time for the BS. We move forward, and it's not my discussion to have.
Interesting. Chris Sale strikes out 13 in a dominant performance.
The 0-2.
Strike 3 call. Fastball over the inside corner. Strikeout number 13 for Sale on his 112th pitch. So, through 8 innings, Chris Sale has blanked the Rays.
And that helped the Mariners, as did the Blue Jays helping the Mariners.
There's a pitch that's ripped down the left field line. And rain done been brought again. A 2-run shot into the 200 level. Josh Donaldson's second tonight. And the Blue Jays are up 4-1.
And the Cardinals helped the Mariners last night.
A swing and a high fly ball. Deep
It's
left
a goner?
field. It's a goner. A 3-run homer for Jerko.
A grand slam, game-winning grand slam home run.
A
for
swing
Cleveland.
and a drive. Deep
I love
left
this guy.
center. On the run is Blackman. This ball gone. Oh, what a mob scene. Gomes jersey ripped off his body as he's mobbed at home plate on a game-winning 3-run homer to left center. And the most improbable comeback win of the season has given the Indians a 4-1 win.
I want you to order up a grand slam home run from a University of Washington product from last night.
Let's do it.
There it is.
Fly ball, deep right field. Going back is Puig. And at the wall, it is gone. It's a home run. A grand slam. Jake Lamb. And the Diamondbacks have a 6-3 lead over the Dodgers.
By the way, ever since I was teasing him about his cold streak when he came on the show that he wasn't hitting very much,
hammer.
he's done nothing but hit. He should have come on 10 days earlier. Anyway, some of the sights and sounds of the day in sports yesterday as we join you live from the VMAC. It's a Wednesday before the Sunday. We're going to talk a lot about the guys that intrigue us, the guys that we're curious to see finally hit somebody on Sunday in Los Angeles against the Chargers. Hugh Breedlove-Millen is here. Slickhawk is here. A little bit about the show today. KJ Wright's going to join us, our buddy. Seems like every year it's tradition that Hugh Millen and I are here at VMAC, and KJ Wright sits in that chair. Now, I would clean that chair. There's bird poop on that chair before he sits in that chair.
You would?
Somebody
why
should.
Don't you?
Well, I will. I will. I'm not going to have KJ Wright sitting in bird poop. That's for sure. He'll be in that chair at 7:45. Hugh's got some emotional words to say at 8 o'clock. I can't wait for that, and I'll participate with him. The poll today is, who are you most curious to see on Sunday for the Seattle Seahawks? For any reason, we want to know who that is and why. It'll probably be pretty obvious to us why, but I think that there are a number of names that are going to be mentioned in that segment by Slickhawk, by you and myself, and all the callers and listeners. Who are you most curious to see as a Seahawk fan on Sunday? Great debates and a 12th man roundtable 2 on 950 KJR live from the VMAC. Yep. The VMAC, Virginia Mason Athletic Center. All right, I know I ask you this every year, Hugh, and take us behind the curtains. We've got the Seahawks at 7 coming up in, 16 minutes. Seahawks insider Greg Bell will be with us, as he is every morning. We call it the Seahawks 7, probably because we talk about the Seahawks at 7. Countdown to exhibition game number 1. By the way, an update on the poop on KJ Wright's chair. Yeah. Take a look.
Yeah, how about that?
Soap, water, Mitch. Nice. Soap, water. I'm going to tell. That's the way I'm going to start the interview with KJ Wright, that there was poop all over your chair.
Whoa.
And that I cleaned it.
Look at you.
I cleaned it.
More things you can do.
Yep.
Got to make yourself valuable.
More and more these days.
Do you know where the coffee filters are?
More and more these days. What?
Do you know where the coffee filters are?
In our office?
Yeah, in the office, yeah.
I kind of do. I've never.
Yeah.
I don't
more
drink
coffee. More
coffee.
things you can do. Yeah. You make yourself more valuable.
Did you do that? You don't drink coffee.
Huh?
You don't drink coffee.
I don't. drink coffee at the station, but
you have your double, whatever it is that your
dark
favorite
mocha at Tully's.
You still do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad. And every time I go walk into Tully's, I think about the Howard Schultz.
Do you really?
Yeah. Not really. Occasionally, I think about Howard Schultz, and I'm glad that I prefer Tully's coffee over Starbucks.
Take us behind the curtain for Game 1 of an exhibition season. And what actually happens, and there's no game planning.
There's no game planning.
What are you gonna? What do you
game
do?
planning is where you have offense, defense, scout squad. You watch opponent tape. The coaches draw up the cards. For example, they may do a little bit of this, but you're not going to see much of it. But in a normal week, for example, coach would sit down and watch Phillip Rivers and the Chargers and all of their most common pass concepts. They'd draw it on a card, and then the offense would try and simulate that. Boykin or Austin Davis. You look at the card and you just do your best to give the defense the look on that play, and that's what's called game planning. In addition to, of course, all the film study, you're not going to have much of that. I'll tell you, it had to be my first year. Ernie Zampese was the offensive coordinator with the Rams, and we're playing whoever we were playing, and he's on the phone. We're in a quarterback meeting room, and he's on the phone with the defensive coordinator for the opponent.
Yeah.
And he's writing.
This is a Holmgren. We've had this conversation.
He's
with
writing
Holmgren.
down.
Yeah.
He's writing down. Okay, you guys.
What are you guys
going
to do?
What you gonna play cover 3? Okay, cover 2. What are you mainly going to play? What's your main coverage?
Yeah.
And he said, okay.
Yeah.
How about blitzes? What? Oh, you got a saw dog? Okay, salmon wheel dog. All right. When do you do that?
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to say, all right. Well, we're going to be 11 personnel. We're going to show you some. We'll have a naked out of 21, and he's sitting there telling them what we're going, so you're a little bit of cahoots about what you're going to do, and really there's some logic behind it, because as you study the players and you're trying to find out who can play, you want everybody relatively on neutral ground, where they don't know exactly the next play that's coming up, but you don't want the offense or the defense to win on a gotcha. Like you had a player that was totally unprepared for a particular look that's not what you would have in the regular season. And all of a sudden he's flat-footed, he's reacting late, and it's a gotcha. You just want to play straight up, give vanilla offense, give vanilla defense, and watch the players go head to head.
To make it easier to evaluate players.
Yeah, you don't want it to be schemed.
You think that still happens? Because Holmgren's come on the show over the years and said he did that, and the league hated that he did it. He called the opposing team's head coach, and that they would have conversations about the upcoming preseason, and he was told multiple times by the league, cut that out, don't do that, and he didn't care.
Or else what?
Nothing. He just he didn't care.
He didn't care, and he kept doing it.
So you think it's still done?
Absolutely.
You think it's still done? So
now it has to do a lot of times with the relationships you have. I think there's some situations, if you don't know a guy or you don't like a guy, maybe less likely to do that. But these guys, it's a fraternity, and most guys know most guys, and particularly early on in preseason, there is an incentive, and I think there's sound reasoning behind the idea that you'd want to share that information.
I think that there is, and I'm doing this based on memory, maybe you can help me here. Didn't he say that he got into it a little bit? He got mad at Mike McCarthy? Did he get mad at Mike McCarthy in a preseason game? That he did something at the end, or did something that Mike Holmgren didn't like in a preseason game, or am I wrong about? I can remember. Slickhawk might be able to help me with that.
I remember
there was some issue between McCarthy and Holmgren that Holmgren got pissed that McCarthy did something in I think it was a preseason game.
Yeah.
That they either hadn't discussed or something like that.
He was either leaving his starters in too long, something like that.
And he was mad at him, and there was anger, there was literal anger until they had to settle their differences.
When Jerry Glanville first got the job at the Houston Oilers, and he had been the defensive coordinator at the Grits Blitz with the Falcons, and he's this wannabe tough guy that hey, blitz him some more, hey, let's blitz Joe Montana, and all of a sudden Joe Montana has 6 touchdown passes, 5 of which were directed at Charles Dimry to Jerry Rice. And you want to say, hey, Jerry,
it's not working.
Charles Dimry can't cover Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Right? Man coverage, he just, it's just, this. At any rate, so game 1 of Jerry Glanville's career, we're playing him in an opening preseason game, the Rams.
Okay.
And Jerry has got, it's like it's January. His blitz package is so extensive. I mean, he's got corner crashes and safety blitzes and double barrel got crisscrossing everybody. He's got 19,000 blitzes
in an exhibition game.
In game 1 of an exhibition.
Yeah.
And it's just a junk show offensively trying to pick all this crap up. And John Robinson and the whole just livid.
Really?
Just livid. And I'm pretty sure he gave him a little lecture at midfield. I'm 99% sure that he,
So who?
Chuck Noll did that. To Jerry Glanville. I mean, he had a famous finger in Jerry Glanville's face. Jerry Glanville
pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what positions, knowing what you know about preseason games, the lack of game planning in preseason game number 1s, the cahoots with the coach, what you're describing as the coaches in cahoots and, kind of making it a scrimmage. Based on everything that you know, that makes it most difficult for what position type of player to stand out. Look, Michael Bennett doesn't need to stand out on Sunday. Bobby Wagner doesn't need to stand out. But there are a chock full of guys in this building and in the Chargers building who are hoping to use Sunday as a launching pad to getting noticed and hopefully making a football team. I would think that some positions will find it more difficult because of all of this to do something dynamic than other positions. Or am I wrong about that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
I mean, is Eddie Lacy going to be able to stand out is he going to be able to run the ball? Is there going to be blocking schemes? I mean, without the game planning, which group of players have it most difficult in exhibition game number 1?
Good question. I'd have to think that through. But you say, okay, what is it about the regular season that
doesn't
makes
exist.
It more difficult? Well, I think you have more deception. There might be more play action passes, more nakeds, what have you. So maybe the defense can come downhill, so there's less misdirection. So maybe it would be harder on a running back. That because the defense ordinarily, if you're a linebacker and you're standing there at linebacker depth and you're reading your keys, the line, or you've got this whole bank of plays that you kind of are thinking through. Well, it could be this, could be that, could be and certainly misdirections are going to try.
Well, if you said to me, Mitch, there's going to be less play action in a preseason game than there is in a regular season, well, then I would conclude that makes it harder on the running backs because linebackers are not going to bite on, are not going to worry about, linebackers are not going to worry about Russell Wilson holding the ball, spinning, and getting out on the perimeter to make a play, and they're going to make it harder on Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls and that group of running backs.
No, they always have their nakeds in preseason, but play action, yes, it's all the category of plays that you could call misdirection. Sometimes teams will just have a bend play where it looks like it's going to be a lead off right tackle, and then you might look at it and say, the running back elected to cut it back to the left side. Well, sometimes you watch it the second time and say, no, that's not a cutback. That's a bend. That's designed to look like it's going to the right, but then bend back to the left. Well, you might have fewer of those type of misdirection plays in.
Okay.
And so a linebacker can just react to what he sees and figure that the ball's, his eyes are going to take him to the ball without the misdirection.
The Seahawks at 7 with Greg Bell is next as we continue to count you down to exhibition game number 1. Seahawks insider Greg Bell does it every morning with us at 7 a.m.
Good morning from the AAA Traffic Center. Eastbound 512 is struggling to get over to the 410 interchange, and then 167 heavy out of Sumner. Seeing delays again after that 18 interchange. Federal way to Bellevue. It's going to take you about 1 hour. Everett to either Bellevue or Seattle also at about a 1 hour travel time. This report brought to you by Sound Transit. Speaking of traffic, if you live in Linwood, don't forget it's a straight shot to Bellevue with the Sound Transit midday on the 535 ST Express bus. So skip the commuter traffic and get to the east side the easy way. I'm Emery Martin. That's your Sports Radio 950 KJR traffic.
Win your trip to our 2017 iHeartRadio Music Festival hosted by Ryan Seacrest. Over 20 of the greatest performers on the planet. September 22nd and 23rd at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Listen to win your trip.
Capital One is the proud marquee partner of the iHeartRadio Music Festival. So cardholders, make sure to have your Capital One card with you at the Daytime Village presented by Capital One to unlock exclusive opportunities. See you in Vegas.
It's Kevin Shockey here for 3010 Weight Loss for Life. I lost over 100 pounds with 3010, and I can tell you it's a program that works. If you need to lose weight, whether we're talking about 20 or 30 pounds or over 100 pounds, 3010 has a plan to get you down to a happy and healthy weight. When you're overweight, the idea of losing 100 pounds is completely overwhelming. Where do you start? When do you start? If you do lose it, will it just fly right back on even faster than you lost it? You've tried to lose weight on your own, and we know how well that goes. You make so many decisions every day. In your commute, your job, your home life. Why not let the folks at 3010 help you out with your eating decisions? They can get you on the path to real, sustained success. We eat every day, but what are we eating? How much of it are we eating? It's time to eat right. 3010 has the answers and the solution for you. Learn how to eat right so you can be a better version of yourself. It works for me, and it can work for you too. Check out 3010weightlossforlife.com to find a location close to you, or just call 855-843-3010. It's 3010 Weight Loss for Life, the standard for weight loss in the Northwest.
Do you want to see hot rods from the 50s?
Yeah.
Do you want to see classic cars from the 60s?
Yeah.
Do you want to meet celebrity Richard Rawlings, TV star and owner of Gas Monkey Garage?
Yeah.
Then come to the Olympia Street Rod Association's annual car show on Saturday, August 12th at Lucky Eagle Casino and Hotel. Check out over 300 classic cars, win some free play, and take a break in our beer garden.
Oh, yeah.
Must be 21 or older for free play. Details at LuckyEagle.com.
The weather is finally coming around, which means there's no better time than now to book your tee time at Glen Eagle Golf Course. Glen Eagle boasts the best public greens in Snohomish County and was recently voted the number 5 most improved golf course in the nation by Golf Advisor. Weekend specials with a cart start as low as $32, and seniors can play with a cart for just $28 on weekends. Make your tee time and get the latest on their daily specials at GlenEagleGC.com or GolfNow.com.
You hear Shuttle Express, you think, oh, they'll just get you to the airport. But no, they take you anywhere you need to go. And now it's even easier to book their exclusive black car services with the brand new Shuttle Express app. This includes sedans, SUVs, and their exclusive vans, assuring that you'll get to your destination safely, on time, and stress-free. So, do you need a ride? Download the free Shuttle Express app, available in the App Store. Shuttle Express. They drive, you chill.
Hey, it's Mitch in the morning here. Hurry in to Mattress Firm's 72-hour sale this Friday through Sunday, and backed by popular demand, get a free Yeti cooler or tumbler with select purchases. But hurry, Yeti quantities are limited and only while supplies last. Hampton & Rhodes Pillow Top Queen mattresses for just $209.99. Get the new and exclusive Beauty Rest Black Memory Foam with black ice, only $42 a month for 6 years, and get a free Yeti cooler. And get the all-new Dream Bed Luxe, a one-of-a-kind mattress with memory foam coils and topped with cooling memory foam, and get a free Yeti. Hampton & Rhodes Plush Cooling Queen mattresses for just $4.99 as well. Mattress Firm supports our local foster kids, mattressfirmfosterkids.org. Don't forget, 72-hour sale coming up. Mattress Firm. Save money, sleep happy.
Something magic
massive has happened to the iHeartRadio app. We listen to your ideas and suggestions. Everything you had to tell us about how we could improve your listening experience. And the result is the newly designed iHeartRadio app. It's not an update, but a complete upgrade with one goal in mind: getting you closer to the music you love.
This is Dan from Imagine Dragons, and this is iHeartRadio.
Download and open the new iHeartRadio app today.
Here's some car laws you might not know about. In Alabama, it's illegal to drive blindfolded. Oklahoma, it's actually illegal to read comic books while you're driving. Rather specific, but here's something else you might not know. TrueCar also helps people get used cars. Hey, it's Doug here. With their certified dealer network and nationwide inventory of nearly 1 million used cars, you'll enjoy real pricing on actual inventory and a simple buying experience, whether you buy new or used. When you're ready to buy a new or used car, check out TrueCar and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features not available in all states.
Wilson airing it deep, looking for Kurtz in the end zone. The pass is juggled, and it is caught.
Kaepernick is in trouble. Ball's out. Recovered by Bennett.
Your home for the 12th man in the NFL is live from the VMAC for Seahawks training camp.
This 12th man factors in, no doubt.
Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
From the VMAC with Hugh Breedlove Millen, Mitch in the morning on 950 KJR. Seahawks at 7, Greg Bell on the hold, on the line, as we start off each and every 7 o'clock hour all the way through the football season with the Seahawks at 7. Back at the VMAC, we'll discuss some of the more intriguing sights from Sunday's exhibition game number 1 in just a moment with Seahawks insider Greg Bell. Lots of G's, lots of E's, lots of L's. But first, let me share with you the headlines. Slickock, here's headline number 1.
High lift out to right field. This ball is gone. Mariners have the lead. Leonis Martin gives the Mariners the lead for the first time tonight, and it comes in the 10th inning.
Leonis Martin caps a hell of a comeback. The 26th, if you're keeping score at home. 26th comeback of the Mariners season. And with help from lots of friends, Kansas City loses. Tampa Bay loses. The Yankees lose. The Mariners are now 2 games over 500 and tied for the wild card. And I've been waiting all year to say, if the season ended today, which it doesn't, and it's stupid to even talk about, the Mariners would have a postseason game. A postseason game, ladies and gentlemen. One more in Oakland. Today at 12:35.
Let's get it.
Yvonne Gallardo and Jarrell Cotton hook up in a pitcher's duel to end all pitcher's duels. At 12:35 today before the Mariners come home. M's top prospect Kyle Lewis homered last night. Legendary baseball umpire Joe West suspended 3 games for making a joke to the USA Today. You talk about uptight. Major League Baseball is uptight. West joked to USA Today when they were doing a profile of him. I think he's the third. He's umpired in the 3rd most games in the history of Major League Baseball. They asked him who the biggest complainer was, and he said Adrian Beltre, for sure. He says he once told Beltre, you may be a great ball player, but you're the worst umpire in the league. You stink. And with that, Major League Baseball suspended Joe West 3 games. Beltre was outraged. He said, come on. He was kidding. He was joking. Come on, we're having a little fun with each other. Don't suspend the guy. They suspended him anyway. The New England Patriots become the first NFL team to go to visiting games, away games, road games, in a private jet. They purchased 2 of them yesterday. 2 Boeing 767s. I saw one of them. Have you seen the picture, Slickhawk?
I saw the picture. I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. The Patriots logo across the side of the Boeing 767 with 5 Lombardi trophies on the tail.
So gross.
You just wanted to go and scratch out a couple of them.
Well, at least one.
One in particular.
Yeah, how about that number 4?
Yeah, Josh Rosen is in is in the news. The quarterback of UCLA who said a couple of things to Bleacher Report that were interesting. He said a football player's schedule and having to go to school, nobody in their right mind should have to go through that schedule. He also said if you raise the SAT requirements for football players, Alabama will cease to exist. Football and school just don't go together, says Josh Rosen, the quarterback at UCLA. PGA Championship begins tomorrow at Quail Hollow in Charlotte. Rory McIlroy. Let me try that again. Rory McIlroy. Rory!
I like Macquarie.
Macquarie?
Macquarie.
He's your 7-1 favorite. Jordan Spieth 8-1, trying to complete the career Grand Slam. Only 5 guys before him have accomplished the feat. Sad news from the football world. One of the all-time good guys, former Syracuse University and Patriots head coach, Hugh Millen head coach, Dick McPherson, passed away yesterday at the age of 86. Daily Schnoz at the bottom of the hour. We'll continue our trek through training camps. We'll get live reports from different training camps around the NFL. Give you some fantasy football league advice, too, in the Daily Schnoz. KJ Wright at 7:45, our old pal. Hugh's got something to say emotionally at 8 a.m. today. And we'll continue to give you chances to win the 50-yard line seat for the Cardinals and Seahawks game by answering our daily poll question, which is, who are you most curious to see on Sunday at 5 p.m. when the Seahawks hit somebody else, not themselves, for the first time? And with that, Slick Hawk.
Very happy with how things have turned out through the offseason and getting our guys together.
Live from the VMAX.
Wilson going to run. Diving for the end zone. He's in.
This is the Seahawks at 7 with Mitch in the morning.
Touchdown, Seahawks.
And Greg Bell, Seahawks insider, does it so well. Was following him on Twitter. There's some roster decisions, I guess, they made yesterday. Some small roster decisions that have some ramifications on who the fullback might be for the Seahawks. Let's get Greg Bell in here and say good morning to Greg. Good morning, Greg.
Hi, Mitch. Good morning. I thought we were just going to talk Mariners the whole time.
We could do that, too. I know that you're a big fan. You're a big baseball fan, big baseball guy. You watch closely. Tell, first of all, and I don't know that these are going to be headline stories in your newspaper today. I don't think you're going to get bold print on these, but still they're interesting in their own little way, the decisions that John Schneider and Pete Carroll made from a personnel perspective yesterday. Right.
It did. Kyle Coleman, one of only 2 fullbacks in camp, was waived, and Robert Myers, who got hurt over the weekend and backup offensive lineman, waived. He'd been playing right tackle, backing up right tackle, waived injured. So if he clears waivers in the next 48 hours, or now 24 hours, he will go to the injured reserve list for the year. What that means is there's only one fullback on the roster, and it's Marcel Reese, who wasn't even on the team until about 3 weeks ago. And, of course, he came the end of last year, played 4 games, played 2 games in the regular season. I don't know that they're going to go through the entire training camp with one fullback, but I do know that Marcel Reese is the guy they want back there, lead blocking. Now, they only used him 20 – I looked up the numbers of snap counts last night. When Reese was here, they only used him 22% of the time on snaps. But the time he got the most snaps, almost 50% of the snaps, was against Detroit in the playoff game. And he was the lead blocker for Thomas Rawls in the Seahawks playoff record, 161 yards rushing he had against the Lions in that win. It's what the Seahawks want to get back to, of course. They keep saying it. Their identity is running. They want to be committed to the run. And having Marcel Reese as their fullback is a step in that direction. I'm not saying he's going to play 50% of the snaps, but they want to use him more than they did at the end of last year.
Well, part of the reason maybe they didn't use him as much last year was he joined them mid-season, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so now they have a full training camp.
November, actually, even 3/4 of the season, right?
Yeah, so they have a full training camp with him now, which might change the way they look at that position and look at Marcel Reese. Greg Bell, the Seahawks insider, is with us from the Tacoma News-Tribune. So we're going to ask the question with the day off yesterday. Not much, I'm assuming, outside of those personnel decisions to report on the Seahawks. Unless I'm missing something, you can stop me if I'm wrong. But with the day off yesterday, we're asking the question today of our listeners and of Hugh and of Slickhawk and all the people that are a part of this radio show. Who are you most curious? I'm using that word, to see on Sunday, and there are a lot of possibilities. I mentioned some of them in our 6 o'clock segment. I mean, some might want to see a new Svelte. I asked the question at 6 o'clock, Greg, when was the last time we saw, the nimble, elusive Russell Wilson, considering that it was the first game of the season that, that the big guy from the Dolphins stepped on his foot.
And Ndamukong Suh, right?
Yeah, and Ndamukong Suh. We haven't seen that's got to be about 18 months or more since we've seen that rendition of Russell Wilson, right?
Yeah, the first half of the Miami game, right? It's the last time he was fully healthy, and you're not going to see much of him Sunday night. Usually, that's one token, maybe two drives for the starters, especially the starting quarterback, and they have a lot of determination to make on who the backup's going to be. They have to see if a backup can complete a pass right now.
Right.
So yes, I'm not curious to see Russell Wilson. I see him every day and throwing, and he's going to be there, but he's not going to be there much on Sunday night.
Right.
I'm more curious to see, one, is Shaquille Griffin going to start? And they will start the defense, and again, probably only one or two series. But if practice are any indication, they'll keep Griffin as the number 2 back, as right cornerback as well. And they want to see him in press coverage and then tackling, bringing guys to the ground, stuff that he hasn't done in training camp. That's important. These preseason games are important for him, and he may get a longer run than most starters if he indeed starts like he did in the mock game the other day. And Cyril Grayson is another one. Is he a football player? He's a track star from LSU, of course, signed undrafted free agent. The Seahawks kind of stole out of Baton Rouge during a trial before the rest of the NFL realized what was going on.
Right.
And they're trying to make him a football player. And he'll get a chance to return some kicks. He'll get a chance to catch some passes. Can he get separation, get off of bump coverage? Can he find open spaces in zone defenses? Can he come back to the ball rather than wait on? That's a common thing for new receivers, is to wait on passes to reach him. And in the NFL, you got to come back to the ball when you're sitting and you've made your cut and you're waiting on the pass to arrive. Those are the things they want to see if he can do. And the sooner the better for him. We talked the other day that wide receiver is such a crowded position that he needs to show immediately and impressively to get a job. So those are probably the two biggest ones for me.
Okay, well, there's some more. Let's talk about some of the other guys as well as we continue with Greg Bell, the Seahawks insider, Tacoma News Tribune each and every day at this time on 950 KJR. We're at the VMAC. He'll be here with us for the 12th Man Roundtable as well in our 9 o'clock segment with Bob Condotta. There's some other guys that I'm sure will get answers on the texting line, on the phone lines. You mentioned Shaq Griffin. Well, let's talk about the other part of the team that we hoped that they would shore up during the offseason, and that would be offensive line. I know we're going to see Ethan Posick. We may even see him with the first teamers. I don't know. Maybe you'll address that here. Will we see Luke Joeckel, the biggest investment money-wise they made on the offensive line? And if so, how furrowed should our eyebrows be, or how much should we squint and watch him closely, Luke Joeckel, on the left side of that offensive line?
Well, I think if he's physically able, they will. Now, we will see him. Tom Cable the other day, the offensive line coach, said that Joeckel's on something of a pitch count, limited in snaps. He didn't even dress for the mock game on Monday, coming off that knee surgery in October he had with Jacksonville. So it's not a positive he will be there, but there is a school of thought that you want him to go against the starting Chargers defense and have what you hope and think will be your offensive line against Green Bay next month against the Chargers starting defense. So if his pitch count allows, I should say, he would be in there. Now, again, I don't think the starting offense is going to be in there much. You're going to see a lot of Posick. He's been the first and second team and even some third team right tackle because of how many injuries they've had while Ifedi has been out. And he's seizing the opportunity, as it were, in that Ifedi being out opens the eyes to the coaches of, okay, hey, can this guy start? And he'll get a longer run, Posick will, to see if he can start. Then Oday Abushi and Mark Lewinsky are still battling for the right guard spot.
Right.
We're probably going to see alternating both. I'm not sure who's going to start because they've alternated almost by the day on who's the actual first and second team guys there. I like Abushi, how he just seems rugged. He seems, not only is he a more seasoned veteran to nurture these young kids that are still one of the youngest lines in the league, that's why they brought him here, but he seems to have a little bit of a nasty streak at him. He's a very mild-mannered guy away from practicing, but when he's on the field, he seems like a nastier lineman than they've had in a little while. The left side is still undetermined, of course, depending on where they put Jokel, which means you'll see Reese Odiombo play a lot. He's been playing at left guard almost exclusively in training camp. That's where you'll see him on Sunday night. And Justin Britt has absolutely solidified his place at center. And then it's Joey Hunt behind him so far. They've used Will Precheck. They have Ethan Posick as was a center at LSU.
Yeah.
But so far in the practice, it looks like Joey Hunt is the backup center. So, yeah, I don't think they say, well, we got to find the best 5 guys and then 3 guys behind him. I don't think they're even close to that stage right now.
Let's finish with Greg Bell, our Seahawks insider with the Seahawks at 7, with Survivor Island running backs. We were talking about it yesterday, you and I, and we're going to talk about it again today when you're finished. They've got a lot of running backs who are intriguing for different reasons, and there are limited amounts of carries in these games. Let's say there's 25 carries a game. There's 4 preseason games. The starters don't play much in the 4th and final preseason game. So 75 carries. Let's say there's 75 carries to dole out in the first 3 preseason games when teams are when this team is trying to figure out its running back situation. You got Lacey, you got Rawls, you got Procise, you got Carson, the teacher's pet. How are they gonna figure out who's gonna get those 75 carries the first 3 preseason games?
Well, if Pete Carroll does it as he's done in previous preseasons, the top 3 are barely going to touch the ball. Eddie Lacy, I don't expect to get any carries Sunday night.
None.
CJ, I'd be surprised. He may get 1 or 2, but again, he has been somewhat paced as well, coming off the ankle. He still has metal in his ankle. He's got screws and plates in his ankle.
Right.
CJ Procise and Thomas Rawls might get a few carries. Procise probably more than Rawls. And then that leaves, really, they've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got 7 running backs because the 8th, Mike Davis, has been injured recently, hasn't practiced in a little bit. So they've got 7 running backs. They list McKissick as a running back, but he's been used as a wide receiver almost exclusively in camp. So now you're talking about Trey Madden, Alex Collins, and Chris Carson. And that's really, excuse me, unless Davis comes back from injury, that's really the 3 guys that are battling for 1 or 2 roster spots.
Right.
That's who you're going to see the bulk of the carries from. That's what I think.
Okay. Greg, we'll see you at 9:28. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Greg Bell, Tacoma News Tribune, Seahawks Insider, Seahawks at 7, all the news of the morning, every day, every single day on 950 KJR, the Seahawks at 7. I want to bring you into the conversation here. He just said something interesting to me. He doesn't think Eddie Lacy will get a carry on Sunday night. I thought the no-carry preseasons were reserved for – what are you smiling about? You know exactly what I'm going to ask.
I know you're going to say.
Because you know how I think.
And I know how you think, and I think you have a fair point.
They're reserved for the stars of the game. They're reserved for the guys at the top echelon, the top tiers, the guys that you know what you have. The guy who just signed a contract. What did you say? Who signed the big contract?
Freeman.
Devontae Freeman's of the world.
Yeah.
We know what Devontae Freeman is paying. Yeah, we know those guys. Marshawn Lynch. We got it. I don't count Eddie Lacy as Eddie Lacy's a guy I want to see during the preseason.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front, but he did mention, that you still got a recovery coming back from that ankle, and so maybe there's a feeling that you want to ease him in and just make sure that when he's handed the football, he's at his best.
Yeah. Why don't you handicap those? I mean, we just I forgot Collins. I know that you've always kind of liked Collins since the first time you saw him, but there's 5 guys. We talked about it yesterday. And there's potentially 75 carries in the first 3 preseason games. If you go 25 carries a game, you come up with about 75 carries. We've got Lacy, who he says is not going to play or not going to get a carry in the first game. We've got Chris Carson. We've got CJ Procise. We've got Alex Collins. We've got Thomas Rawls. I mean, I think the preseason's very important to Thomas Rawls to reestablish himself. Dare I say, as an NFL running back. People have been walking around here wondering who's going to be the shocker. Who's the guy that's not going to make the team that's going to shock everybody like, oh, my God, he's not here anymore? Who's going to get traded right before the end, the last cut, because they feel like they're going to go a different direction? Look, if you said, Mitch, Would you willing to put money on Thomas Rawls not being on this team? Of course not. I believe there's a great chance he's going to be on the team, probably 100% chance. But if you said to me Thomas Rawls, I don't know where he fits in. I guess he's going to share carries. He's going to have a good I think he's got to have a good preseason, Thomas Rawls.
No, I never thought of him as a guy who's fighting for his job right now. I think he's shown enough. But
what's his role?
Anything is possible. I mean, he's not Marshawn Lynch in the prime of his career here, so I'd say he's less defined that. Well, I think his role is, a workhorse running back.
And, a workhorse running back.
Yeah, that's what
he's going to get the most carries of anybody on this team.
Well, I mean, that's his role. I'm not saying he's going to get the most carries, but his role is a guy that is versatile enough. He's just good enough in all aspects that you can hand him the ball 20 times if you have to. They don't know what they have in Eddie Lacy. I think they feel like they know more about what they have with Rawls.
So if you were a betting man and Vegas offered you a wager real quickly before I go to the Daily Schnoz of who gets the most carries this season for the Seattle Seahawks?
Probably Rawls.
You think Rawls will have more carries than Lacy?
I think so.
Interesting. And what if C.J. Prosise pops as a runner? If they all of a sudden start liking the way he runs the ball. You and I haven't seen all that much in the running. But let's just say it pops, and they like what Lacy does. And they like Prosise's hands in the pass game. I don't know.
Chris Carson could be the next Thomas Rawls.
That's right. Daily Schnoz Training Camp Edition. 2 more training camps. Profile. We'll go live to them. Give you some fantasy advice as well. KJ Wright at 7:45. And then an 8 a.m. Hughes got something to say that you're going to want to be paying attention because I will be on 950 KJR. KJ Wright in about 18 minutes right here with us live from the VMAC, the linebacker. The underrated linebacker, continues to be underrated linebacker of the Seattle Seahawks. Hughes got something to say also at 8 o'clock. Plus your chance, 50-yard line seats to see the Cardinals and Seahawks in the final game of the regular season by participating on the radio program live here at the VMAC. It is the training camp edition of the Daily Schnoz. We will visit 2 more training camps and give you some fantasy advice here on the Schnoz. But I've got to interrupt the proceedings because I got to get at least 3 minutes from Steve DiMeglio, our guy from the USA Today, who's at Quail Hollow, where the 4th and final major championship will be played starting tomorrow morning. Steve, let's start with your thoughts on the decision of the PGA to move it to May, have one each month, and end the tour playoffs before the NFL season begins. No-brainer?
I think it is a no-brainer. First of all, they had to do this move because of the Olympics, and they had to do this move because FedEx did not want to go up against the NFL and the NCAA football and Major League Baseball winding down its season. So they had to finish the season before September. Before Labor Day. And it's a nice sequence. As you said, the Players' Championship in March, Masters in April, PGA in May, U.S. Open in June, British Open in July, FedEx Cup in August. And that will get more eyeballs with this move. And it definitely was a no-brainer.
Let's talk about the PGA Championship with Steve DiMeglio of the USA Today. You got to read his work. He's terrific. He's about as good as it comes out there covering the PGA Tour and the PGA Championship this week. A lot of people talking about the changes that have been made to Quail Hollow. It used to be that you went out and ripped up the first 7 holes, try to get 2-3 under par. Not the case anymore, Steve.
Well, the players are going to get hit right away on that first hole. It's gone from about a 420-yard par 4 to a 520-yard par 4 dogleg right. It now finishes at the old number 2 green, and that is definitely going to get the players' attention right off the bat. The 2 new holes that they put in, the 4th hole is a par 3, not very difficult. The 5th hole is a dogleg right, not very difficult. But the other major change that will get the players' attention is on number 11, which was already one of the toughest holes here. They moved the green back about 15, 20 yards, and they added some bunkers. So it's playing much, much tougher. And now it's all Bermuda, so the rough is different instead of rye, which is easier to hit out of. Now it's some brutal, deep, thick Bermuda rough that is going to cause problems this week. Phil Mickelson yesterday said he thinks even par is going to be a very good score this week. So if Mother Nature doesn't come in, though it's expected to rain heavily on Friday and maybe some on Sunday, and this course is already soft, it would play so much longer if the rain does come, and that'll make it even more difficult. So it's a beast, I'll tell you. Charlotte usually was a tough track. Well, now it's as tough as it's ever been.
Is it a bomber? Is it somebody who can really poke it off the tee that's going to win this thing? Do you agree with Phil Mickelson's assessment of even par? I don't. I think it'll be under par, well under par. That'll win it. But you're there and I'm here. What's your thought on that, Steve?
No. Oh, I thought even par was a little low. I think 5 under, 6 under.
Okay.
The fairways are tight, and that rough is going to cause problems. The greens are they have sub air, so they can get some of the moisture out of the greens. So the players are going to be going from very soft, rough, or very soft fairways to firm greens. So that's a difficult thing to face right off the bat there. Obviously, length is always an advantage, but it's going to be a tremendous advantage here if the course gets even softer.
Okay.
And so you look right away to Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't forget Jordan Spieth. He's trying to become the youngest to win the career Grand Slam this week. He's coming off his British Open win. He played pretty well last week at Bridgestone. You just can't ever count him out, even though he'll be at a little slight disadvantage to the longest players in the game. But I'd go immediately to Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy.
Okay, and I'll ask you in 20 seconds, and that's all we have left with Steve DeMeglio. Unfortunately, I could talk to him all day. The USA Today cover the PGA Championship. The Rory McIlroy story, great success at Quail Hollow in the Wells Fargo. Of course, it's been changed, and so everybody fancies him because of that. Also, he drove the ball so well last week at Firestone. It sounds like you're buying Rory this week, Steve.
Well, he'd be in my top ones. Definitely, I think George's going to make a run at it, but I think the length is going to catch up with him. But Rory, as you said, he loves this place, and he still loves this place even with the changes. And when you're feeling that good and you're coming off 2 top 5 finishes in 2 pretty big tournaments where the best players in the field were in, he's finally getting his mojo back, I think, as he's finally getting him away from that rib injury that bothered him all year. I'd be Rory. I give you a long shot just real quickly. Daniel Berger, he loves Bermuda greens.
Yeah.
And there is a different thing about putting on Bermuda greens. That might be the only disadvantage that Rory is going to face. He's not well versed in Bermuda greens. But if with a gun to my head, I would take Rory.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. We'll be reading. Thank you. Appreciate it. Steve DeMeglio, USA Today at the PGA Championship in Charlotte. Story 1 on the Daily Schnoz.
Here's another late development.
The Daily Schnoz. Mo Egger, WCKY, covering Cincinnati Bengals training camp. We'll spend 2 or 3 minutes with Mo. Mo, good morning. I see where the head coach is going to miss some time. Marvin Lewis at Bengals training camp. What's wrong? Illness?
What they're calling a minor health issue that caused him to miss practice yesterday. They're really not saying how much time he may miss. I think it's going to end up being, just based on talking to a couple of people, it might be the kind of thing where, he may be at practice one day, he might have to miss the next day, he may have to miss the preseason opener on Friday. Nobody seems to be all that concerned about being a long-term, really serious thing, but whenever a head coach of an NFL team misses a practice, and we all know how much, especially a guy like Marvin Lewis, loves being at practice, it's significant, but fortunately it doesn't look like it's all that serious.
Okay. Storylines at Bengals training camp. Before we ask you for a couple of fantasy nuggets about this team, tell everybody in Seattle and that are listening who Carl Lawson is, because you guys have gotten a good education of who Carl Lawson is in Cincinnati, right?
Carl Lawson is a defensive end / linebacker. He's going to be used more as a defensive end here that they drafted from the University of Tennessee. And this was obviously a draft where, there was a lot of talk of them potentially taking a defensive end in the first round. Obviously, they took a guy very close to home for you guys in John Ross, and so they needed to, at some point in the draft, address the defensive line. They drafted Jordan Willis from Kansas State, Carl Lawson from Tennessee. Coaches go out of their way to say that all their draft picks are doing a good job, but Marvin Lewis has gone out of his way to talk about how good Carl Lawson has looked. He's used the word unleash. And look, this is a pass rush last year that was very stagnant, and they didn't upgrade it in free agency. They're hoping for improvements from guys who are here, and they need an infusion of athleticism from some of the young guys, and Carl Lawson right now looks like he's the guy most likely to give it to him.
Who are the fantasy football league guys that we should have on our team from the Bengals, Mo?
Well, you start with Giovanni Bernard just because he's going to get a lot of touches. He's going to catch a lot of passes. He's going to be used in the run game. I don't think that Joe Mixon being drafted really is going to change how much they like to use Giovanni Bernard. The other name, obviously, is Tyler Eifert, who is often injured, but when he's healthy, he's one of the best red zone targets in the NFL. I think he's a top 5 tight end in the NFL when healthy. He's the guy they go to first in the red zone, and so if you have a chance to draft Tyler Eifert, I think you got to pull the trigger.
Pin the wins on the donkey. How many wins for the Bengals?
I think they're, and this is a cop-out to an extent, I think they're an 8-8 team. I think better health from last year is going to enable them to be better. I think they'll also do a little bit better job in closer games. The problems are this. Number one, I don't love the pieces in the secondary. Dre Kirkpatrick can't be your top corner, and he probably is. And then they had a bad offensive line last year, and they let their best 2 linemen get away in free agency. That usually doesn't add up to improvement. They have a lot of weapons. We understand what Andy Dalton is. I think they are more athletic on defense, but I think the secondary and the offensive line are going to keep this team from having a season where they win more than they lose.
Thank you, Mo. Appreciate it. Live from Bengals training camp. Mo Eggers right there on 950 KJR. Give me 30 seconds, and we'll go to another training camp on 950 KJR.
The Classic Golf Club, located in Spanaway, offers world-class golf for everyone with its fun and challenging course known for its smooth, fast greens, rolling hills, and firm fairways that are perfect for golfers of all skill levels. For a limited time, the Classic is offering a 30-day trial membership with unlimited golf packages starting at just $170 with no contract. Come out to the Classic and discover your new favorite course.
Life that you live. The new Michaels Automotive Group at the Eastgate exit off of I-90 for the life you live.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash.
The Daily Schnoz. Let me spend 2 or 3 minutes at Pittsburgh Steelers training camp with our buddy Ray Fittipaldo, who always seems to have a minute or two for us, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Good morning, Ray. Tell us the storylines. I'm assuming Le'Veon Bell's absence is storyline number one in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell and the continuing saga of Martavis Bryant. He has yet to be fully reinstated by the NFL. The Steelers thought Martavis Bryant thought all systems were go when he reported close to 2 weeks ago now, and he still hasn't been cleared by the NFL. The NFL says he still has to satisfy some requirements in order to get on the field. The Steelers think he's close. And as you mentioned, Bell, he's not here. I don't think he's going to report to training camp. I think he's going to wait until they get back to their facility, probably August 20-something. I think he'll come around and he'll get himself a week or two to get into shape before the season begins. But I don't think we're going to see Le'Veon Bell in the main portion of training camp when they're away here in Latrobe.
Yeah. Tell us about the defense of the Steelers. I think they're going to score. One way or the other, they're going to score. Roethlisberger's going to have a year. He'll find receivers. He's got good receivers. He's got the great running back who'll come back at some point. Can the Steelers stop anybody, Ray?
Well, they were pretty good at stopping people last year. The biggest issue for them is can they find a way to figure out Tom Brady. They were close to a top 10 scoring defense last year.
Okay.
Really good red zone defense. And, I think they're tweaking some things in training camp this year to sort of prepare for Brady and the Patriots. They're playing more press man coverage, I think, when they get to that point and play the Patriots in December and or the playoffs. They want to sort of disrupt the timing and sort of throw a different wrinkle with the Patriots because whatever they've done in the past hasn't worked. But they were a good defense last year. They're young. I think they're going to get better. But I think in the end, this team's really going to be judged on how they do against the Patriots, both in December when they get them at Heinz Field and, again in the playoffs if they draw them.
Before you leave us, Who are the fantasy football league darlings on this team outside of the obvious guys? How about Juju Smith-Schuster? What kind of role will he have?
Yeah, I mean, Juju's been really impressive. He had a little bit of an ankle injury that kept him out early in camp, but he's been really good. It's interesting. Hines Ward is here as a coaching intern, and he reminds everyone of Hines Ward. He might be a little bit bigger than Hines, but he'll get his nose dirty. He blocks. He's physical, and he catches almost everything that's thrown his way. So, I mean, fantasy-wise, Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant are going to get a lot of the touches, but Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a nice role in this offense, I think.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it very much.
All
Okay,
right.
Ray Fittipaldo in Pittsburgh today with the Steelers training camp. There's your Daily Schnoz.
Well, that's the news. I'm out of here.
The Daily Schnoz, brought to you by Michael's Toyota of Bellevue on Sports Radio 950 KJR.
KJ Wright's going to sit with us here live at the VMAC next. Also, the top of the hour, Hugh's got something to say. It's the first Hugh's got something to say of the training camp that I know the topic. Typically, I ask him not to tell me the topic. I know the topic. Trust me, you're going to want to hear from Hugh, and I'll participate on that subject at 8 o'clock on 950 KJR.
I can be a fool when I'm being polite. Like, oh me, oh my. I know many women want to be in my life. Like, oh me.
You know, it dawns on me. First of all, I want it to be known for the record. I came here at 5:45 this morning with Hugh Breedlove Millen. We were told KJ Wright's going to be out with us. I look at the chair, and there's bird poop all over the chair.
There's bird poop on the chair?
On the chair.
It's all good.
And I thought, am I going to make
seen
KJ?
worse.
Am I going to make KJ Wright sit in the bird poop?
Nah,
and I decided if
I'm not sitting on it.
it was Wagner, I wouldn't have cleaned it.
Yeah.
If it was Sherman, wouldn't have cleaned it.
Let it sit.
I went in there. I went in there. I got paper towels. It's beyond my job description. I got soap. I cleaned the chair. You are on the cleanest chair that we've got here. I want you to know that. Only because you're the old man of the defense.
I thank you.
Are you
the old man of the defense?
Are you the old man of the defense? Who's older than you on this defense?
Cliff, Ruben, Mike B, Cam, Earl. Come on.
No, they're not older than Cam's not older than you.
Yes,
is
he
he?
is.
Is he?
Football wise, you're 8. I'm 7.
Oh, I'm not talking football wise now.
I don't know. I don't know that other age.
How you doing? It's good to see you
Yes,
again.
sir. Doing great.
Yeah. Any difference out there? Is this same old routine?
Same old routine.
Same old routine.
Another year, another opportunity, doing what we love, man. It's fun out there.
Nothing changes?
What's supposed to change? People ask that every year. What's supposed to change?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
What is supposed to? You answer your own question. What should change if you? When you look around and say what needs to change?
Maybe nothing.
I don't think
Hang on.
anything.
Nothing.
Super Bowl rings.
How do you get that? What are you supposed to change to get a Super Bowl ring? Are you supposed to do something that you've never done before?
Well, it's dynamic, right? You got every year's a different team and little different strengths, different weaknesses, right? I mean, you're not the same team you were in 2013. If you're going to win the Super Bowl this year, it's got to be a slightly different way.
But let me ask you, do you do the same thing you did in 2013?
Some things, yes.
And some things you got to
Some things you got to change. You got to do. You try and always get better.
You're always getting better.
Yeah,
that's definitely number one. And I believe that's the only thing you got to do is always get better. But change.
All right, maybe change is too drastic of a word. How about just
improve
subtle things. When you look back at last year's defensive performance, and you look back, can we all decide that the best defensive performance that they ever had was the Super Bowl year? Have we decided that? I don't know. Whatever was the standard. You would agree that last year was not the best you've ever been as a defense. So when you look back at last year and you compare to whatever that greatest year was, what would KJ Wright say are the slight differences between the two?
I mean, the thing is, we practice and focus on the same things that we did in 2013 that we do now. We emphasize tackling, we emphasize getting the ball, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're practicing the same things, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't the same. And so that answers the question. We're trying to mirror that, but it's just.
Let's talk about you for a second, because have you heard of Peter King, the Sports Illustrated guy? So we're standing there talking a few days ago, and he was kind of asking me my thoughts about the team, and I said defensively, still got to be the best personnel in the league, and I started going through the guys, the obvious guys, but you were, third or fourth or fifth guy I mentioned. I said KJ's the most underrated guy on this team. He's got to be in the handful of most underrated guys in the league. That's how I honestly feel. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the first guy to express that to you. Do you feel that way? What's your reaction when people express that about you?
Man, I've been hearing that since Pop Warner, Pee Wee.
Really? Why? How do we get you rated?
You were hold on a second. You were underrated in Pop Warner,
yes.
Pee Wee football.
I barely made the team.
Come on, come on.
I've been hearing it for a long time.
Because he's quiet. That's why.
I'm not even quiet though.
A little compared to the guys next, compared to all the other guys.
What's it about your game? What's it about your game that makes it underrated?
That they don't appreciate?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe when I'm gone, they'll realize, dang, that KJ, he was really good. We're missing something in that. I don't know. I do everything solid. Maybe I'm just good at everything, and it's just watered down.
You know when I knew you were a superstar level linebacker? The Saints game.
Is he a superstar level linebacker?
I think he is. Hell yes.
Are you a superstar level linebacker?
You think I'm a superstar?
I am. When you hear, I am.
That's up to you to decide.
When you guys played the Saints, it was a night game. It wasn't the playoff game, I don't think. But they tried to mash Darren Sproles on a little whip route on you to really try to isolate you. And here you are at damn near 6'5", damn near my height. And you're out there covering man to man. You're covering Darren Sproles on a double move little whip route. You remember that play? Yep. They tried to get you early.
I was in.
They
robber.
attacked you.
I remember that like it was just it was one robber, motion out to empty, and I had a man to man. Just played my technique. Just covered it. Just used your technique, and covered Jimmy well. I covered Ben Watson well.
Yep.
Talcum Mark Ingram.
Who's the toughest guy? Who's the toughest guy that's giving you the most problems?
Tight end?
Anybody that you've had to, because of one reason or other, you've been assigned to cover in a given play?
Running backs, I can't say anyone, but tight ends, there's been a few good ones. You got the Gronks of the world. Greg Olson's pretty good. Who's that fast one? One guy, Jerry Cook.
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty good as well.
What makes Gronk so tough?
His body. Big body. Can push off. You would use his body as well. Fast, solid hand.
Is he as goofy on
quarterback?
Yeah, his quarterback's pretty good.
Yep.
Is he as goofy on the field as he is off the field?
No.
Is he acting all goofy on the field?
All business.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Trash talking?
Nope.
Who's the trash talker?
Guys don't trash talk in the NFL.
Come on. Come on.
They don't. Maybe the only guy that really talked trash to me this past season was 14 from the Dolphins, Landry.
Jarvis Landry.
Yeah. He may be the only one that I can think of.
What did he say to you?
I actually said something to him, and he said something back.
What'd you say to him? How'd it go?
No, he had pissed me off because he hit me in my back when I was diving. And I said we exchanged words, and I can't tell you what we said, but that stays on the football.
Did he do it again?
No, he knew better. He knew better.
All right, he's got to go to a meeting. We got to ask him the question. We got to ask the question for yesterday.
But you got to get a little disclaimer.
So go ahead.
The disclaimer would be: look, we understand there's an effort. Brawls happen on a field, but I know there's an effort to not cross lines and everything. So we respect the game. So having said that,
right,
the question we had.
Well, we were talking about the toughest Seattle Seahawks.
What are you laughing about? I haven't even told you the question yet. The toughest Seattle Seahawks. So we had the listeners participate in a poll. If we put an NCAA tournament bracket together, and we had alley fights,
okay,
all the Seahawks,
no weapons,
just your hands, your legs, your strength, straight brawling. And we went 64 to 32 to 16 to 8 to 4 to 2 to 1. Who would win based on their toughness, based on
everything,
physical, based on everything? Who would be the alley fight champion before you go to your meeting? Look at you shaking your head, and you're not.
He knows.
You know your answer? Who's your answer?
And I'm not biased with this answer.
Yes, you are biased because you're going to pick a defensive guy.
I am. And this dude is one of the strongest dudes I've ever been around. Physically, mentally, I'm going to have to go with Bobby.
Bobby Wagner.
He will. He will
Picking
mess
a linebacker.
Up. No, he will mess people up.
You know what?
How about Justin Britt, 45-0 as a high school wrestler?
Put me against Britt. I'll beat up Britt. I'll beat up Britt.
Come on. If he gets you on the ground, what's your plan?
He won't get me on the ground. But Bobby, seriously.
Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
KJ.
sticking up for
Good to see you, man.
All right.
Go to
Thanks,
your meeting.
Thanks, KJ.
KJ Wright, love to visit with him anytime. The underrated superstar linebacker. He doesn't want to hear that word anymore. So let's just call it superstar linebacker of the Seattle Seahawks, KJ Wright on 950 KJR. Hugh's got something to say, and you want to hear it next on 950 KJR. And back at the VMAC for Seahawks training camp, our thanks to the Seahawks and KJ Wright, who says maybe they'll realize my value once I'm gone. He's been underrated since Pop Warner football. He hates hearing the word. He stood with us during the break asking us our opinions of the Seahawks defense and the Seahawks and what needs to be different this year. One of the first Seahawks, I think, has ever done that. Actually started to leave and came back to ask us our opinion of the Seattle Seahawks defense. Very interesting. KJ Wright, our guest here at the VMAC. 5 p.m. Sunday, we'll see KJ and everybody else hit for the first time. He's taken Bobby Wagner in the alley fight, completely biased. I disrespect KJ's opinion on that. Leonis Martin's 10th inning home run wins it for the Mariners. They are now tied for wild card number 2 with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Kansas City Royals. They'll play another game today at 12:35 in Oakland before Edgar's big weekend here in Seattle. Jarrell Cotton, 5-8, 5.48. For Oakland, Giovanni Gallardo for the Mariners. M's top prospect, Kyle Lewis, homers again. 5 home runs, 13 RBIs in 15 games in high A ball at Modesto. Legendary baseball umpire Joe West suspended 3 games for remarks to the USA Today. The New England Patriots buy 2 Boeing 767s and will become the first NFL team to travel private to away games. NFL teams have been reluctant to do that over the years because they only play with preseason 10 away games and hasn't justified the investment. Bob Kraft becomes the first to do it. Not a shocker there. PGA Championship begins tomorrow morning at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, where Rory McIlroy is the favorite at 7-1, mostly because he has dominated that golf course on the regular tour when the Wells Fargo event is played there. Jordan Spieth trying to become the 6th man, only 6, only 5 before him, to win the career Grand Slam by winning the PGA Championship. He would do something that Arnold Palmer never did, that Tom Watson never did, that Phil Mickelson never did, that Lee Trevino never did. Those would be the 4 best players that I can find in Major League and PGA major history that have not won the career Grand Slam. Of course, Phil will continue to try to do so if he skips his kids' graduations and play in the U.S. Open. Now, 8:04 on 950 KJR Slickhawk. Still to come, your chance to win 50-yard line seats to see the Cardinals and Seahawks play in our next segment. So get ready to call, and we want you to answer a very simple but fun poll question for the morning here at the VMAC. And that is, who are you most curious to see and why on Sunday night at 5 p.m. when the Seahawks play a game for the first time, an exhibition game against the Chargers. At 8:28 this morning, we will ask you your answer to that question. You can pick anybody for any reason. Curious. Not necessarily excited, but curious to see play on Sunday night. We do a segment every morning during training camp called Hugh's Got Something to Say. And the rules have been it's anything that's on his mind, anything good, anything bad. I like to not know what he's going to say and what he's going to talk about. I don't want to know anything about the topic until he shares it with us for the first time at 8 o'clock. Today is a little different because while we haven't discussed the topic, we both know what the topic is going to be. So I hand the ball to Hugh Breedlove Millen on what's on your mind this morning. And I know it's something near and dear to your heart that's on your mind.
Well, it's very near and dear to my heart. And you said, hey, it's a segment, what's on your mind? Well, if I'm answering truthfully, there's nothing but Dick McPherson on my mind. He's a Hall of Fame coach. of Syracuse. He was the football coach when you were there, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him. But in terms of his impact on the game, his predecessor was had won 41% of the games, and Coach Mack took Syracuse to heights they had never been to, almost won the national championship. And so here he is in the Hall of Fame, but I think to just look at the numbers wouldn't even begin to tell the story. I mean, I called Sean McDonough, the Monday Night Football announcer who went to Syracuse and knows Coach Mack well, and now I've come to learn he's going to be doing the eulogy, and I mean, Sean was just flat out in tears, just a mess yesterday. And he said, Syracuse is just a wreck. The city of Syracuse. I can say, I'm 53 years old, he is the most beloved person I've ever known.
Really?
Absolutely the most beloved person, because he had, this is a man that went to Mass every single day of his life. And yet I've never seen somebody who could combine aspects that would be seemingly diametrically opposed. He has this deep, sincere goodness to him, and I mean, he loved people, but he combined that with an old school toughness and a blunt frankness and honesty in a way that was just a masterpiece.
You need to point out to people that he was your coach.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
for the New England Patriots. People may not understand.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah,
the correlation and the connection.
Yeah,
and it's not a topic that is going to be discussed in Seattle very often.
No, and I understand we're 3 time zones away. But
yeah, and I don't know that anybody even knows who.
But he's
Dick
a Hall of
McPherson
Fame coach,
is.
and you know what? And I can just say he's on my mind because of, again, how beloved he was. The 1990 Patriots, the NFL Network does their top 10. They ranked them in the 8th worst team in the history of the NFL, going back to the 1920s. And Coach Mack, they had been 1-15. Coach Mack came into that, as did I, and he recruited me there as I had some contract offers and dalliances from nine different teams, and I got a window in how he must have recruited at Syracuse. I told you this story, but the other team that I was considering was the Chargers. He got me on the phone and he said, "Now you tell me how is the Chargers a better opportunity than the Patriots, and don't say the beach." We had gone to dinner and when they flew me out there to quote unquote recruit me, and we went to nice dinner and here I am. I want to get some New England clam chowder. He goes, "No, don't get the clam chowder." He says, "Get the corn chowder." And he explains to me his tough upbringing in Maine, and how they had people who didn't have money. They didn't have the clam chowder. They had corn chowder.
Yeah.
Because they had to put the corn in instead of the clam. Clams. And he says, you want to connect with New England? Have the corn chowder, even though it was a nice restaurant. It was still on the menu for many people. So I had that, and we had a day we went out to Springfield. They loaded us up on the buses, and we went. He had coached at UMass Springfield in Western Mass, and they had this huge banquet, 1,500 people, every table sold, and Mac was going to be speaking, and he gets up there and he says, "Well, we've got a new quarterback, and I want him to come up and speak." He didn't tell me. He wanted to put me under the gun, and I'm that dirty rascal.
Did you get up there?
I got up there. I had to speak. Yeah, 1,500 people.
You were not able to prepare.
He didn't tell me. He didn't tell.
How could Hugh Millen do anything unprepared?
Oh well, I didn't know where I was. I thought I was going to be in the back with everybody else listening to Coach Mack.
How'd you do?
You know what I had been with Sean McDonough to a Boston Bruins game. 7th game of a series against the Canadiens, and so I got there and I said, you know what? I went to this Bruin game, and they said the first 4 or 5 words of the national anthem, and all of a sudden I couldn't hear the rest of the national anthem because the fans were so frenzied. I said, that's what we have to do. We have to play at a level where we can get that kind of provincial passion. So that's where I went with that, and I remember we're that again, the team had been 1-15, and the offensive line was probably the woe of the team. And we're playing up at the Jets, and and things aren't going well. And I went over, and it was the first time and only time in my career.
This is the 1991
Patriots. We're playing
coming off of a 1-15 football season, and it's his first year, and it's your first year, right?
Yeah, and we got to 6-10, and Kevin Mannix of the Boston Herald wrote it was the most exciting season in the history of the Patriots. He did. I could show it to you. And we beat Buffalo when they were 10-1. We beat the Oilers and Warren Moon when they were undefeated. And every game, I think we had 4 comeback wins, and every game was just down to whether we win or lost. So they were just thrilled that we got to reasonably competitive. 6-10 is garbage, but at any rate, at some point along the line, we're playing the Jets, and he was near me, and we're kind of looking at each other, and I blurted out, I just said, "Is there something I can be doing more?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Listen, you're getting the SH beat out of you. You just hang in there and do the best." It's like under siege. So, but he had this toughness. You mentioned the most, I don't know, probably heartbreaking moment in his football career was they go down the Sugar Bowl. They're 11-0 with Don McPherson, the quarterback, not related. They go to play Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. And they get a 3-point
January 1st,
lead.
1988.
They get a 3-point lead, and they're going to win the national championship. They're going to win the national, or they're in the running for the national championship. And Auburn goes down, and in the last couple seconds, they kick a field goal. And forever after that, Auburn wasn't in the national championship hunt.
Right.
Forever after that, they called Pat Die, Pat Tie.
Right.
You want to get a good religious man rankled, just bring that play up, right? So as this warmth and love of people, but that toughness. I mean, he coached the Cleveland Browns when they had Jim Brown, and after the playing days, I was up hunting with Tim Green, the former Syracuse player. Bobby Hebert was up there, Morton Anderson, a handful of us. And Mac drove up a couple hours to see us, and we were just sitting around telling stories. And he started telling stories about Jim Brown. And he said this, I'm going to say this, it's not going to sound in the right context, but you have to trust me, the context. He started talking about Jim Brown, and he goes, "Let me tell you something about Jim Brown." He tells us all at this cabin up in Hunt. Jim Brown was a mean, dirty a-hole. And he said the word. But the way he meant it was affectionately in terms of, you want to talk about a guy, you hand the ball, and he wants to punish you, and so to have a guy who had that kind of, imagine, he was on the staff with Jim Brown. So, a lot of times people say, I can't say a bad thing about a guy.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind that Dick McPherson, who died at 86 yesterday, that is absolutely what people will say. But that's only the half of it. Because a lot of people, you'd say, I can't say a bad thing, but how often are you going to come deep from the bottom of your feet to express how effusively you feel about a man's goodness? And he was that guy.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting storyline, because when I saw it on the screen yesterday, I was saddened as you were. I didn't know him like you knew him. You played for him. All I did was I was a young punk sportscaster wannabe in 1985 through 1989 at Syracuse, and he was the head football coach. So I didn't know him very well. But when I saw it come across the bottom line, I said to myself, heartbreaking, because I know what you thought of Coach McPherson. I don't even know that anybody in Seattle knows who Coach McPherson is. You say he was a college Hall of Fame coach, but that's a long time ago. The 1988 Sugar Bowl is 29 years ago. His tenure was short-lived with the New England Patriots because Bill Parcells came along, and so he is nothing but a footnote. And I don't know how much I can add, but I'll add this: that I'll add two things. One is a personal, more of a personal layer, and the other one is just the excitement that he brought to a basketball university. When I got there in 1985, they were known for their basketball team. And ever since, they've been known for their basketball team. And when I got there in 85 and 86, they had guys like Pearl Washington and then Sherman Douglas, and they went to the Final Four in 87. And in 1987-88, they were the number one team, preseason number one. They had brought in a guy by the name of Billy Owens, who people might remember. They brought in a guy named Derek Coleman. They were literally they were the top of the basketball world. They were the Duke. They didn't win the championships, but they were the number one team in college basketball. Just about in 4 years that I was there, they were a top 10 team for 4 years. It was 35,000 at the Dome to watch them play Cornell. They were the kings of Central New York. Yet if you said to me, what was the best sports time you had at Syracuse in those 4 years, it was the 87 team that you talked about that went to the Sugar Bowl and had the tie. Out of nowhere, the tandem of McPherson and McPherson, unrelated, the quarterback who finished second in the Heisman to Tim Brown, and the coach, the incredibly personable, laughing, smiling, jovial, emotional coach. Out of nowhere, they direct this undefeated, untied regular season. I'll never forget October 1987 when they played Penn State, who had just killed them for like 20 years in a row. Joe Paterno came in there with the 10th-ranked team, and we beat them 48-21. I've never heard the Dome so loud in my life than 48-21 on Parents' Weekend, October of 1987. And that 87 season was the best. Of all the basketball teams and all the basketball games, there was nothing like Dick McPherson's 1987 Syracuse Orangemen football team. So that's the one thing that I would say. But I think the best way for me to put what I felt for Dick McPherson would be this. That when I got there in 1985, I was a part of a string of years of these snot-nosed kids that went to Syracuse to become sportscasters. Somewhere along the line in like 1984, there was a Sports Illustrated article that they call the article there that claimed that all the great sportscasters went to Syracuse, which is an erroneous claim, but a lot of them did. If you want to be a sportscaster, if you want to be the next Marv Albert, if you want to be the next Bob Costas, if you want to be the next Marty Glickman, you go to Syracuse. So from about 1980 to present, every year, a truckload of snot-nosed, non-athletic sportscaster wannabes would come to Syracuse to what they call the Newhouse School of Communications. And when you got there, there was this intense competition amongst all of you, the Taricos and the Ione and all the guys in my generation, intense competition of who was going to be the best to cover the basketball team and who was going to be the best to cover. And you were 18 years old, and you were trying to do work that 25 and 20. And there were two main figures at Syracuse University at the time. Two main figures, and you know who they were. One guy's name was Dick McPherson, and one guy's name was Jim Boeheim. And one of those guys made every kid feel like he shouldn't be there, he ought not be there. Shame on him for trying to do an old and made you feel like you were 18. Every time he could get a chance, he would make you feel like you were 15 when you were 18. And there was another guy there who was the coach of the football team who made you feel at 18 like you were 30. Who took the time.
30 and winning Emmys every year.
That's right. There was one guy who you would ask a question. It was probably a lousy question at 18. He'd look you in the eye. He'd give you 2 minutes of an answer. He would help you. He would foster you. He wanted you to be improved and great. And he treated you like an adult and a professional, and you weren't either. And there was one guy who put you down and put you in your place and yelled at you and pointed your finger at you and made you feel 18.
So you got that contrast.
Okay? You had one guy who was that way and the other guy who was the other. And Dick McPherson was the guy who, like, made you feel like you were on top of the world and you meant something.
I can say,
and that's Dick McPherson.
Without any hesitation, in 86 years, Dick McPherson never made anybody feel like you said about the other. And, last time I was with him when Washington played Syracuse, Jake Locker's first game, Tim Green was an All-American football player, teammate of mine in Atlanta, and we got out on Tim's boat on Lake Skinny-Atlas, and it's just so Coach Mack just loving people and just telling stories and just laugh. He's just so quick to laugh, and a hearty laugh, and is so quick to smile, and just those beautiful eyes in the sense of I don't know if they were brown or blue, or I'm saying the engaging, the warm eyes.
Yeah.
And what a mark. And and Tim, probably his most beloved player. I called him today.
Yeah.
And
Tim Green.
The
greatest, maybe the greatest defensive player
45
in
sacks,
Syracuse
All-American, and
Dick McPherson.
Two-time state wrestling champion, heavyweight wrestling champion,
Yeah.
multiple black belt.
Rhodes Scholar.
Rhodes Scholar.
Yeah.
A real tough guy. And I caught him this morning. When he answered the phone, Mitch, he was sobbing.
Yeah.
Not when we started talking about him. He
Yeah.
was already sobbing when he answered the phone. He goes, Hugh, I'm sorry, I can't talk. He sent me a nice text after, but he says, I can't talk. This is the day after. He really, really, really made an impact on some people that I understand it's 3 time zones away.
Well, not only
but
is it
you
3
know
times
what?
away.
Just try and live like Dick McPherson.
Yeah.
Try and live like Dick
I know
McPherson.
it's 3 time zones away, and I know it's not the Seattle Seahawks as we sit here on VMAC at the VMAC, and I know it's not the Mariners, but what they always told me, and maybe it's true, it's maybe not true about sports radio, is talk about things that are near and dear to your heart. Talk about things that you're passionate about. And even if the audience doesn't have necessarily the same interest or knowledge of the subject as you do, they will gravitate towards you. That's what people want in their cars. They want to hear you talk about something near and dear to your heart. And Dick McPherson was near and dear to Hugh Breedlove Millen's heart, and I'm glad that Hugh's got something to say to talk about 86-year-old Dick McPherson, who passed away yesterday. At 86, former Syracuse coach, former New England Patriots coach. Let's give you a chance to win some 50-yard line seats to the Cardinals-Seahawks game. All you got to do is participate in our next subject, on our next topic, and that is, who are you most curious to see line up for the Seahawks on Sunday evening at 5 o'clock in their first preseason game? The lines are wide open. If you participate, you go into the hat for the drawing of the Cardinals-Seahawks game. 50-yard line seats, 16th and final regular season game of the season, just for participating on 950 KJR. Live from the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, another day, another dollar here. Sun's trying to peek through. Seahawks will practice today in preparation, if you want to call it that, of preseason game number 1 on Sunday night at 5 p.m. down in Los Angeles against the Chargers. Hugh Breedlove Millen is here. KJ Wright was here. He took Bobby Wagner, by the way, in yesterday's poll question. Back alley brawl. He said Bobby Wagner wins, and when Hugh brought up the expression that was priceless was when Hugh brought up the words.
Justin Britt, yeah.
What did he say? What was the
Very
face?
dismissive.
What was the face?
He just kind of shooted
away.
away.
He thought Hugh was joking when he brought up Justin Britt.
Well,
anyway.
I got a feeling Bobby Wagner's going to get it on the ground with a 325-pound dude, and that's going to be problematic.
All right. So that was yesterday's poll question. So everybody who participates in the poll question goes into a drawing at the end of training camp for the 50-yard line seats to see the Cardinals against the Seahawks in the last regular season game of the year. It happens to be on New Year's Eve. Could be for the division. Could be for home field advantage. Could be for a bye. Could be for the number 1 seed. A lot could be on the line in that final game, and you can have 50-yard line seats just by participating at 206-286-9595 and 1-800-829-0950. The more you participate, the more times your phone number goes into the hat for the drawing for the tickets. And to participate, all we ask you to do is answer our question of the morning. And today's question of the morning, going way back to 6 o'clock, and we can get Slickhawk in here. What am I hearing? Is that here, or is that on our? All right.
Just the music.
Okay. Is the music important? Is it?
No, it was just playing.
Is there lyrics to it that makes it
no
appropriate? Okay.
No, it's not meaningful at all.
Okay. Well, you can fade it out.
Okay.
The question is, and I brought this up to you guys back on Monday morning. I was going to ask the question: who you most excited to see in a Seahawks uniform on Sunday evening at 5 p.m. when they hit people for the first time and they play for the first time. And then I decided to change the word, the adjective, the adverb. Who are you most excited, I guess the verb, most excited to see on Sunday night from excited to who are you most what's the word I got? Curious?
Curious.
Who are you most curious to see on Sunday night at 5 p.m.? It could be one of a lot of different Seahawks for a lot of different reasons. And I'm asking you to limit it to one and give a reason why.
Not to quibble, but aren't we talking about adjectives here?
Adjectives, yeah.
Okay.
Adjectives, yeah.
Excited, yeah.
Excited, yeah. Adjectives. Who are you most curious to see? It may not be because you're excited. It may be because you're worried. It may be because you're concerned about Luke Joeckel. You want to watch Luke Joeckel very closely in his first go-around as a $7.25 million man for the Seahawks and the Seahawks' biggest investment on the offensive line. So curious is the word I'm looking for. Hugh, you pick one.
Curiosity. Pick one.
Pick one. One guy that you're really curious to watch on Sunday night and why.
Honorable mention to Ethan Posick, but I'm going to say Shaq Griffin.
Shaq Griffin.
Yeah.
He's the one guy you will.
Yeah. You know, because I was initially disappointed. I expressed it here on the air that I wanted them to take Kevin King. I said it coming into that day. Kevin King ends up going. We're talking about the beginning of the second round. Kevin King ends up being the first pick in the second round.
Yeah.
I really believe that these guys were very, very intent. I mean, Kevin King was right at the top of the guys that they were considering. Mm-hmm. And so when Shaq Griffin got taken in the third round, I was disappointed. I thought Kevin King was the model. You couldn't have a pile of clay that was more like Richard Sherman and had the potential to be another Richard Sherman than Kevin King. And yet, when I watched him in the minicamp, it was indoors, the Ricky minicamp. First, I walked over, I made a beeline to Shaq Griffin on minicamp number 1.
Yep.
And I talked to you the next morning.
Yeah.
And my first impression and my second and every impression thereafter,
You've liked Shaq Griffin from the moment you've seen him.
I was
you
about
like
to
his
say
body.
loved him. That's going a little too far. I got to see him play, but I have really liked what I've seen.
So Shaq Griffin is the guy for you.
I like his frame.
Shaq Griffin.
I like his acceleration. I like his turn.
You're most curious
to
see Shaq.
Yep.
Can I add some color?
Please, yeah.
May I add some color to your comments?
I would love you to.
I'm going to read to you a piece out of the Green Bay Press Gazette by the guy covering the Green Bay Packers, who after every practice writes a thumbs up, a thumbs down column. I'm going to read to you yesterday's entry under the words thumbs down. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to make any more of this than what it is. It's just words. I'm going to read to you this. Rookie cornerbacks don't usually have a lot of success in the NFL. There are so many good receivers in the league, and the rules favor them so heavily. The transition from college to the NFL can be brutal for a corner. Second-round pick Kevin King is finding out how tough it can be. Since camp started, he has struggled mightily in the one-on-one drills, and Tuesday was no different. First, Jeff Janis drove upfield with a quick burst, getting King to bail out quickly, then made a hard stop and caught the ball with a huge cushion between him and King. Next, Devontae Adams drove upfield and then flattened inside for a big gain across the middle. King again gave up too much room and couldn't recover. Randall Cobb followed and used a subtle push-off move to gain space on an out route. And finally, Geronimo Allison did the same thing as Adams, breaking off a route into the middle and getting wide open as King failed to recover. I'll learn from it, King said, and try not to make the same mistake twice. Just a little blurb in the Green Bay Press Gazette, not to mean that Kevin King's not going to become the greatest corner on the face. He may still become the greatest corner on the face of the earth, but apparently, according to some people's eyes, he is struggling in training camp on a day-to-day basis.
If you put Richard Sherman as a rookie or now in the slot
Yeah.
In off coverage, there's some things that he cannot transition, can't do. My excitement for Kevin King was him to come here and play the Seattle way, which is you know that you have help inside. What you have to do is you have to defend the go. You have to be physical at the line of scrimmage. You have to defend the go. And there's a couple of stop routes. Now, that's not the terms that football people use, but just think of it like this. There's go and there's stop. And when you funnel to the outside and you use the sideline to your advantage, there's ways. Richard Sherman had some liabilities. That's why he was a fifth-round pick. But Seattle doesn't play to his liabilities. Seattle plays to his strength. What I was excited about was Kevin King coming here at 6'3" and actually testing better from an athlete standpoint than Richard Sherman, and let him play the Seahawks way.
All right.
We'll see what happens with Kevin King.
We'll see. He's struggling in Green Bay's training camp so far, but that's just a momentary evaluation. Slick Hawk. Yes. Before we go to our listeners and give people a chance to win 50-yard line seats to the Cardinals and Seahawks, who is the one player that you are most curious to watch on Sunday night at 5 p.m.?
Well, you took mine, so I'm going to go another way.
We're not allowed to repeat what others have said, is that right?
I think it's more interesting if I pivot and take somebody
else.
else.
Well, then I'm going to have to pivot and take a third guy then, okay?
Somebody I've really liked in camp, but I want to see how he stacks up against other defenses. Chris Carson has been impressive to me. He has size that I didn't realize that he was going to have, and he's looked like a nice running back option.
Yeah.
So as murky and muddied up as that backfield may become here in the next couple of weeks, I'd like to see what Chris Carson can do against some NFL defenses.
Okay, I was going to say Shaq Griffin also as we get to the phone calls, but I won't. And I won't say Chris Carson because you've taken Chris Carson, so I'll just go ahead and say I'm going to be watching Ethan Posick play the offensive line, and particularly the right tackle. I would like very much, if you said to me, Mitch, what are you rooting for Hugh Millen to say to you on Monday morning? I'm rooting for him to say two things to me on Monday morning. Mitch, Shaq Griffin looked unbelievable in that first series, those first couple series against the first team L.A. Chargers offense, and Ethan Posick looks like a real comer and a real starter at right tackle at offensive line. So you took Shaq Griffin, you took Chris Carson.
Yep.
I'll take Ethan Posick. Let's get the phone callers. We will do nothing but rattle through phone calls in our next segment, and we'll get as many people that are willing to call into the hat for the drawing of the 50-yard line seats. Who are you most curious to see play on Sunday for the Seahawks?
Good morning.
Okay. Hugh Millen says he's most curious to see Shaq Griffin. And we both agree, but in the interest of being different, Slickhawk says Chris Carson.
Yep.
The running back that's been the teacher's pet since the moment they drafted him in the late rounds. I think he was the final pick that they made in the draft in April. And I went who did I go with? Ethan Posick. I went with Ethan Posick. I want to see him go out there and be an offensive lineman that doesn't look like a sixth man. Doesn't look like a versatile, can come in and play any position and stand on the sideline until somebody can get hurt guy. I want to see him come in and say through his play, yell to his play to Tom Cable and Pete Carroll, hey, I'm a starter. I'm a really good offensive player, offensive lineman that needs to be starting, not waiting on the sidelines for the opportunity to play one of the positions on the offensive line. All right, everybody participates, goes into the drawing for the 50-yard line seats to see the Cardinals and Seahawks. Let's start with Jessica in Issaquah. Now, it doesn't have to be new guys, Hugh. You could be excited and curious to see, because you haven't been out here at training camp, what number 3 looks like. You could be curious to see, Eddie Lacy. You could be curious to see a lot of different guys, right? Earl Thomas, I think, is going to play after that incredible injury that he suffered, that he was tweeting about ending his career and retiring. Maybe you're curious to see number 29 play, or the kicker, the new kicker. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you might be curious to see. Go ahead, Jessica.
I am curious to see Eddie Lacy play. I want to see which one we get. I want to see, is he hungry and not for dinner? I want to see what he's going to do.
All right. Jessica says Eddie Lacy. Mick in Lake Stevens.
Yeah, I have to go with the crowd and say the first name that came to my mind was Shaq Griffin, just because there is so much at stake, and it would be so nice to have that position nailed down and have some confidence in him.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Eric in Puyallup.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see about Amara Darboh. I'm looking for that next receiver that could be sort of like what Golden Tate was, and bring another option to that wide receiver core.
Eric in Puyallup says Amar Darboh, and I should point out that when we did the Seahawks at 7, Greg Bell said, when I asked him the same question, he said Cyril Grayson, he wants to know whether that guy is a football player or is it just a track star. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell whether he's a real football player until you put him in pads and put him on a playing field and have him play against corners and get hit and play something other than touch football.
Well, David Moore, the 7th rounder, has
Yes.
made more plays than Darboh, the 3rd rounder. So
right.
And he's not as big as Darboh, but you also have McKissick.
Yes, former kind of fullback-ish.
But he's got some receiving skill. I mean,
yeah. Anthony in Woodinville. So I got a Lacy, I got a Shaq, I got a Darboh. What do you say, Anthony?
Surprise, surprise. I got to go with Shaq Griffin. I want to see if we got ourselves another nickel corner or if we got somebody who can separate themselves on the depth chart, get us to that number 2 corner spot.
Fair enough, Anthony. Thank you. You're in the hat for the 50-yard line seats of the Seahawks-Cardinals game. Pam and Issaquah.
Well, my understanding is they have Jeremy Lane penciled into that spot, so I want to see how that goes. I want to see if he's improved. When he was playing that position consistently, there was some improvement going on before his injury, so if they've got him there, I want to see why.
Yeah. Somebody said that Jeremy Lane just had a bad year last year. He signed the contract and had a bad year last year, and he's got something to prove this year, that he's worthy of the starting or even the nickel job in the Seattle secondary. So Jeremy Lane gets a vote as most curious. Who are you most curious to see play on Saturday night against the Chargers? Kurt in Edgewood. Kurt.
I'm going to go with Austin Davis. I want to see if passing up on Colin Kaepernick was a smart decision. You know what? I love Russell, but he's had some injuries these last couple of years. And if we tank this season because we didn't want to take on the controversy of Colin Kaepernick, there's going to be some upset Seahawks fans.
Hugh, if the two guys have been terrible by all accounts in the practices, the two other quarterbacks, if they really tank in the preseason, does that force John Schneider and Pete Carroll to go out and say, we got to make sure we've got somebody that can come in and be a competent player and go out and readdress the backup quarterback role? Or do you think sink or swim, it's either Boykin or Davis or both?
Well, if it's a real bad tank, I think they're going to have to go make a move. Would it be Kaepernick? Possibly. But at that time, that's tough. You don't really have the reps in practice to get a guy ready. Now's the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If a guy can make it through training camp and be on the roster the first week, it's really hard to make a change at the backup quarterback position.
Dwayne in Seattle is next. Good morning, Dwayne.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'd just like to see Shaq. Everyone's been talking this guy up so much. I'd just like to see what he brings to the table.
Boy,
here.
number 26 doesn't realize that he's going to have a lot of eyes on him. He's going to have a lot. Are we hoping that Jeremy Lane doesn't play so that we can see Shaq against the first teamers, or would you rather see Jeremy Lane against the first teamers and Shaq against the second teamers?
I want to see Shaq. Mm-hmm. Jeremy Lane has got a ceiling. There's only so good he's going to be as a right corner. I want a guy that can be a potential star. Shaq Griffin's got the size and the athleticism, to really go. And by the way, I was at the Falcons when Deion Sanders was drafted.
Yeah.
And I could show you the list of receivers at the time. They ain't exactly going to be wearing yellow jackets. And for that first year, you could get Deion. I was a backup quarterback. I'd go after Deion all the time. The time.
You didn't get Deion.
he was easy to get.
Really?
And we had the locker next to him. We had a great relationship. He and I still talk. I mean, everything's great. Our energy's great. And the club loved that I was going after him. Dion loved that I was going after him. A lot of times they put a circle on the scout team, like, hey, we want you to throw it here.
Yeah.
I was throwing at Dion almost every damn time I got a chance because they wanted him to get tested. And guess what? About early in that second year, you couldn't get him anymore. But it took a while. The whole rookie year, you could get him the whole year.
Uh-huh.
And he's maybe the greatest cover guy that ever played.
Can we slip in a few more, Slickhawk?
Dustin in Seattle.
Dustin in Seattle. Who you most curious to see? We'll throw your name and number into the hat. Go ahead, Dustin.
How has no one mentioned Blair Walsh?
Blair Walsh. I'm worried about Blair Walsh.
I'm worried about Blair Walsh, but let's see him kick a 56-yarder.
I'm worried about Blair Walsh.
Yeah, he's
I don't remember which fight commentator it was who I did an interview with. I used to interview those guys, Pacheco and Gil Clancy was a guy from years and years ago. And somebody came on, I don't even know if it was this show or if it was back in D.C., and said to me, Mitch, a fighter changes once they see their own blood for the first time. Once they taste their own blood, and really in particular, once they lose. An undefeated fighter, from the time that he's undefeated to the time he has one loss, there's more of a change in that fighter from undefeated to one loss than there is from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Soon as they lose, they become a different fighter. I worry about Blair Walsh. Blair Walsh has tasted his own blood. And a lot of kickers, once they taste their own blood, they're never quite the same in a big situation.
Well, he's a good athlete. He's got a strong leg, and
he's from my hometown, for God's sake.
Is he? Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
pretty much.
It's all in his head. Everything for him is in his head.
But he tasted his own blood.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe he just needs a change of scenery.
Let's hope. Let's hope as we continue with great debates and 12th Man Roundtables, the daily edition on 950 KJR. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the VMAC. It's Mitch in the morning with Hugh Breedlove Millen on 950 KJR. The great debate is coming. The 12th Man Roundtable with Bob Condotta, who wrote a piece today on the front page of today's Seattle. Oh, that's not Bob Condotta. Sorry, that's Jason Jenks. I gave Bob Condotta credit for Jason Jenks' work on Shaq Griffin, number 26. Let me get you updated on what's happening in the world of sports. Since we're at the VMAC, we have not focused on it today as much as maybe we should have or would have. Oh, boy. 4 runs down, so what? Leonis Martins, 10th inning home run, caps a 4-run comeback. The Mariners win 7-6. The 26th come-from-behind victory of the season. 2 games over 500, and now with losses by Kansas City, Tampa, and New York last night, the Mariners are even Steven in the wild card race. They have scratched and clawed their way with all these injuries to the wild card in the American League. They are tied with Tampa. They are tied with Kansas City, and I think they're 2.5 games back of New York for the top wild card in the American League. One more in Oakland before Edgar's big weekend. 12:35 today, Yovani Gallardo against a guy named Jarrell Cotton. Cotton is 5-8 with a 5.48 ERA. He's a right-hander. 16 starts for Oakland this year. The team is 6-10 in his starts. Go Mariners.
Yeah.
Top prospect Kyle Lewis with another homer from Modesto. 5 homers and 13 RBIs for our guy Kyle in 15 games of high A ball since coming back from the latest knee setback.
That's our dude.
Legendary baseball umpire Joe West suspended 3 games for remarks he made to the USA Today about Adrian Beltre. He was joking around with the USA Today. Major League Baseball obviously very uptight. He was asked who's the biggest complainer that he's ever seen. He said it's got to be Adrian Beltre. He told Beltre once, hey, buddy, you make a great ball player, but you're the worst umpire in the league. You stink. That got him 3 games suspended. Beltre, by the way, does not. Vehemently disagreed with the suspension. Said that they've chatted about it, and he was joking the whole time. The New England Patriots become the first NFL team to purchase a private jet. Actually, they purchased 2 of them. 2 Boeing 767s yesterday, retrofitted with first-class seats, the Patriots logo on the outside, and 5 Lombardi trophies on the tail. Yuck. They'll be the first NFL team in history to travel to visiting games, away games, in a private jet. Hard to believe that it's never happened in this day and age where teams are worth billions and billions of dollars, though there's only 10 road games if you include the 2 preseason teams. But for the Patriots, if they don't have home field advantage all the way through, they play playoff games on the road too. They play Super Bowls on the road. So they can travel in style. What do you think about your buddy's quarterback, your buddy Jim Morris quarterback, who said, Josh Rosen, who said, human beings don't belong in school with our schedules. No one in their right mind should have a football player's schedule and go to school. He says about raising the SAT requirement, raise the SAT requirement at Alabama and see what kind of team they have, he told Bleacher Report.
Better hope they don't play in the Final Fours.
Football and school don't go together, says Josh Rosen. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do 2 full-time jobs.
Well, I can say that the most difficult part of being a student athlete, you can look at the hours and you say, all right, there's guys out there that are working their way through college, spinning pizzas or something. The difference is the energy that it takes. If you're sitting there, you got some type of midterm on Friday.
Yeah.
And you're on Thursday night and you're trying to study for the midterm. I had numerous times where you read the same page 3 times. You can't. It's so hard to concentrate sometimes on your schoolwork because
you left it all on the field.
You're playing USC on Saturday. You're playing UCLA on Saturday for the Pac-10 lead. That's a really big event in your life when you're playing in 48 hours and you're trying to, or 24 hours or whatever. You're trying to have a midterm. The guy spinning the pizzas, he might have worked just as long, at his job as the athlete did training and preparing, but the emotional difference is incomparable.
What are you saying about pizza spinners?
I'm just using
You've obviously never seen
you think those guys
how hard they work.
How
the sweat that goes into your pizza.
And when they're sitting there studying for that midterm, they're saying,
yeah,
God, I got to spread that sauce just right.
Yeah.
Just right.
Yeah.
Make sure I don't leave any.
As often is the case, I'm reminded of a famous Seinfeld episode as you tell me about the pizza spinners.
Yeah.
Where Seinfeld, the neatest freak and the germaphobe that he was at a pizza parlor. And he goes into the bathroom, and he's at the sink after urinating, and he's washing his hands. And as he's washing his hands, he's looking in the mirror, and one of the stall doors opens, and out comes the pizza spinner.
Yeah.
Out of one of the stalls.
Oh yeah.
And he walks up to the sink where Seinfeld is literally soaping his hands. Yeah. And the pizza spinner looks at himself, puts his hand through his hair, and walks out. And Seinfeld's eyes, and then he walks out and he sees the guy spinning his pizza.
Oh, no.
Sees the guy spinning his pizza with the dough. He's got the dough in his hand.
Did he just walk out? Let's hear your thoughts. We found it.
Jerry. Tonight is for a real treat. I'm personally going to pay the dinner for you and Audrey.
Larry David.
There you go.
What a genius. Well, what's your reaction to that? I'm sympathetic. I'm glad that athletes feel like they can talk about things. I hope he doesn't take too much of a beating on this.
He's going to take a beating on this. I like the Alabama line.
Yeah?
Yeah,
No, I know
raise
he's gonna
the SAT requirement.
I know he's taking a beating there.
I like the Alabama one.
Yeah,
See what kind of team they've got if you raise the SAT requirement. Anyway, the floor is yours, Slickhawk. The floor is yours at 9:08. Don't forget.
Welcome, everyone, to the official debate section of the Charter Review.
The Great Debate, brought to you by Gamble Sands Golf Course. The Inn at Gamble Sands is now open, so book your reservation at gamblesands.com.
James, I find him to be a really, really bright guy. I've seen him on a whiteboard, X and O and stuff, and he's a sharp dude. I mean, he's no dummy. I don't know what he.
He's no dummy.
No. My sense is that his intelligence is level. He's got a high IQ.
Okay,
he's a bright guy.
Okay, Slickhawk.
We had a real opportunity over the weekend, gentlemen.
Did we really?
Yeah, we did. We had
It's
a great
over.
opportunity.
It's over.
To make no, it's not over. We had an opportunity to make up some big ground though, because for 4 points, if we had gotten somebody who Kenny easily mentioned in his speech, we would receive those points, and everybody who didn't guess correctly lost 3 points. Everybody lost 3 points.
Everybody lost 3 points. Well, we said Steve Largent.
Yes.
And we made a terrible, terrible mistake.
He mentioned Steve Largent.
He didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He
Sure?
did? Then we get points.
I don't think
it's
he
up
did.
to Hugh Millen's the judge. I don't think he did, but here's where I
Maybe
knew.
they showed him
Here's
picture.
where I knew where we were in trouble.
Yeah.
Here's when I knew we were in trouble, and that it wasn't when he was speaking. I read an article. I think it was Bobby Condota who wrote the article about the coolness of the relationship for many, 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 many years between Largent and Easley. We didn't know that at the time of us deciding the showdown. At least I didn't know that. Maybe you guys did. Apparently from the crossing of the picket line of the strike when Largent decided to play, that was the end of the relationship between Easley and Largent for a long, long time. So when I read that before the speech, I thought, oh, geez. There's no way he's going to mention. Although the article did say, and if it was Condota's article, I give him the credit, that they have patched it up and they're good now, but they're just recently good. Yeah. So I thought we should have said Jacob Green or somebody, and I know that he mentioned Jacob Green.
He did mention Jacob Green.
Son of a bitch, we blew the whole thing.
I know. But it just felt like he was going to say something like, "It's an honor to be here with the other Hall of Famers like Cortez Kennedy and Walter Jones and Steve Largent."
Yeah,
that was the '87 strike. I was on a team and we were striking, and the emotions were very high. And the Rams at the time down in L.A., Eric Dickerson. I remember Eric Dickerson. We were meeting in a old parking lot of like a Walmart right across the street from the Rams facility. And he said, "Listen, I'll do whatever y'all want, but I'm going to just tell you, I'm broke. I'm flat broke. But if you want to keep striking, that's fine." So he was going to...
Wait a second. He was broke, and was he in the prime of his career?
Well, this is 1987.
I don't know when he was in the prime of his career.
83
hadn't he made a lot of money?
I'm just telling you what he said. He
said broke.
He said he was making $667,000, and that ain't superstar money.
Yeah.
Because... Mark Salin was making 1.2 right up the road with the Raiders.
Yeah.
And here Dickerson was having
all right,
and carrying a greater load.
What'd he do?
So, but Nolan Cromwell, the point I'm getting, Nolan Cromwell crossed the picket line.
Yeah.
And I saw how that splintered the team. It just devastated. It's devastating. And so when Largent crossed the line here, I can only imagine
Steve Largent.
How, taking into account what I observed as a guy, watching that happen down in L.A., I can imagine that would really be tough for some of the guys here.
So we blew it, huh?
Yeah, we had a real chance there.
Could have been a contender.
Could have been. Well, we're still okay. We're only down 20.
Yeah, it's over. It was over when you picked the Golden State Warriors, when you picked the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Again, we're down 20. That was a 3-point question.
Yeah.
Who will, for 7 points, who will win this weekend's PGA Championship? +3 closest to the pin.
Well, Rory McIlroy is going to be the odds-on. He is the odds-on favorite, and he'll be picked. And I don't know who you like, and I think picking a golf tournament, and Hugh hates predictions to begin with. You can pick predictions and 50-50 things, and now multiply it times $1 billion to pick a winner of a golf tournament. But I don't know. I sense that there's a lot of people down for whatever reason on the world's number one player. So if you want a bargain, Slickhawk,
yeah.
I don't know if you want a bargain being the last place in the showdown.
Well,
you're
I
in
had
the
a
last,
thought.
you-
I had
you-
a thought.
Okay,
we can have a
well,
little
if you're
fun.
the last place in the showdown
Yep.
and you want to try to be contrarian and try to get a bargain, I can give you a bargain.
Okay.
I can virtually assure you, now people are listening, so maybe they'll change their mind.
You do get
I
3
can
for closest to the pin.
Okay, I can virtually assure you that the world's number one player, Dustin Johnson,
Yep.
who should do very well at Quail Hollow because of his length and it's soft there, is not going to be picked by any of the other shows because he's, for some reason, people are just down on him right now.
All right.
And they're all about Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth. So my guess is if you want, as the last place team in the showdown, a bargain, take Dustin Johnson because you're getting the number one player in the world and see if you can maybe gain some ground on all these guys that have Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth. Now, if you want to go the other route, which is, God, we're so far behind, we can't afford to take a flyer on anybody, and you just want to try to take who everybody else is going to take, well, they're going to take Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth.
No, I think we go outside the box a little bit. I like Dustin Johnson, as you mentioned. The other thought that I had was Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah, he's going to be, he's a guy too. He's a guy too, but he won last week. Do they win back-to-back in big tournaments? Some
I don't
do.
know. You know
Some
better
do.
than I do.
Some do. I don't know. I like both of them. You could go with both of them, but I just say, hey, if you're going to get a deal on the number one player in the world,
let's do that.
Let's go get the deal and take our chances.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Long term, for the second year in a row, for 5 points, who will lead the Seahawks in preseason rushing yards?
Oh, boy. He's not much of predictions, but I got Hugh Millen next to me, and that's going to be a function of who's going to get the most carries, right?
Right.
You're not asking yards per carry. You're asking most total rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to try to pinpoint the guy who's going to get the most carries, and I'm just going to say what everybody's going to say the same thing on this one because Pete Carroll loves him. He's a guy that typically in his position on the roster would get a lot of carries. He'll go to the last cut and try to maybe get on the practice squad. I got to believe that the Pope of this year is going to – there's always a Pope, right? What was Pope's first name? Tremaine Pope?
Yeah, Troy Maine Pope, yeah.
Tremaine. I got to believe Chris Carson is the Troy Maine Pope. So
I'm with you.
It won't be Lacey. It won't be Procise. It probably won't be Rawls, although it could be Rawls. I would say, how about Alex Collins? You could go Alex Collins could have a lot of yards.
I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think, Hugh?
Well, the one pause I have on Chris Carson would be a few days ago when Carroll was asked about him. He wanted to just get in and out of the conversation. Yeah, he's doing great, and just get to the next question. And right when he said that, as I'm standing there listening to him, I'm thinking, he's trying to hide that guy. And
to try to get him onto his practice squad.
Yeah, that's the impression I got.
He's done raving about. He used to rave about him. Now he's done raving about him.
Yeah. Now,
does that mean he doesn't get carries?
It's risky if they feel like
we could go Alex
they're
Collins.
They're going to give him carries, but are they going to showcase him enough to lead the entire team in carries? I don't know.
And the other problem that you have here with this question is it's such a small sample size of games that if somebody, like, let's say
somebody busts a big one.
Yeah, let's say Thomas Rawls takes 180 on Sunday night. He may just win the the preseason rushing title on that one run alone.
It's like trying to predict turnovers. They're really important.
Yeah,
but how do you predict them?
You don't. Yeah, you can't predict anything. What do you want to do? You want to do I mean, I think every show is going to say Chris Carson.
On this one, I feel like that's the right thing to do, though. On this one, I mean, we can't go off the beaten path on every one. I think we have to pick our spots.
Yeah.
I think with the PGA Championship, that's a good spot. With this one, I think it's better to kind of maybe go with what we think everybody will do. And maybe they won't, too. Maybe they'll surprise us.
Okay.
Or maybe they'll have that same thought.
Okay. You don't like Alex Collins to get a lot of carries?
I don't know.
In third and fourth quarters against third and fourth team defenses? Hugh, Alex Collins?
Yeah,
and he looks trimmer and tougher, and he's running hard. He could do it. He could be the guy.
He'd be the profile of the type of guy who could get a lot of carries.
Right? Especially if they try to hide Chris Carson from other teams.
Well, yeah, with that information from Hugh there.
I don't know.
No, it's not information. It was just an
Well, no,
impression.
but that's meaningful.
I'll let you pick it.
Yeah, we can go.
I picked Dustin Johnson.
We can go Collins. We can go Collins.
Okay.
We'll do Collins.
All right.
Since May 28th, the Mariners have had the second best record in the American League at 10 games over since that mark.
Really?
Yeah. Are they on a good enough trajectory to keep on into the playoffs?
Well, if they stay on the same trajectory, they're going to be in the playoffs. You're really asking if they can stay on the same trajectory, and I just don't. And I'm a lover like everybody else. This starting pitching is terrible.
Oh.
This is just terrible.
It feels like
what
it's
happened
gonna
to
be such a
Ariel
waste.
Miranda? Why isn't Dick Fain here raving about Ariel Miranda today? Where did Dick Fain go when I think Ariel Miranda went on the same boat with Dick Fain. I had to sit and listen I had to be criticized the whole first half of the year for saying that I didn't think that Ariel Miranda was as good as everybody else thought he was. And God almighty, the guy has lost. First of all, he's given up more home runs than anybody in baseball. Did he not give up a home run on the first pitch of the game? I think the first pitch yesterday was hitting the seats.
Pitch?
The first pitch by Davis. Raja Davis hit the first pitch into the left field seats. The first pitch into the left field seats. So if we can't count on Miranda for a little something, how do we count on Yovani Gallardo today and Marco Gonzalez? And I can't fathom that they're going to be able to do this with this starting pitching. I just can't. But I'll root like hell. So my answer is no.
All right.
They won't stay on the same trajectory. They won't be in the playoffs.
And Floyd Mayweather says that on paper, Conor McGregor has an advantage because he, Mayweather, has lost a step. Do you think Mayweather...
Now, when does a boxer... Let's talk about this for a half a second. Okay, Mr. Let Mr. Cynical step to the microphone here. Okay?
Yeah.
We all been watching boxing for a long time. Hugh and I have been watching it a lot longer than you have, Slickhawk.
Well, I'm not really a boxer.
In fact, Hugh had at one point a stepfather who was a boxer.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, and so we've been watching these lead-ups to big boxing matches for a long time. The macho lead-up to I'm going to kick your ass. Right. I'm the greatest in the world. I'm the greatest that ever lived. Every boxer that's ever been in a big match has said nothing but rave reviews about himself. All of a sudden, the cockiest of them all, by the way, I've lost a step. He's got a real chance. He could really I'm not the fighter that I used to be. Excuse me? The cockiest MFer of them all is now in the midst of a couple of weeks before the fight. What are we, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the fight?
Yeah.
Is telling the world, I'm not as good as I used to be, and he's got a real chance. Now, excuse me for my cynicism, Hugh. But if you want me to believe that he is being genuine and legitimate with these remarks, I'm having a little bit of a tough time. Especially a guy whose salary is tied into what?
Sales.
How many people buy the boxing match?
Pay-per-view. Yeah.
Because in the last many weeks and months, everybody has decided that McGregor's got no chance.
Yeah.
So if McGregor's got no chance, and the world has decided that, is that going to help or hurt the pay-per-view sales?
Yeah, no, there's no question.
This is the biggest bunch of crap I have ever heard in my life.
And to underscore that point, he went on an interview last night, and he said boy, I got to hand it to McGregor. He's really stepped up on the promotions part of this thing. And he's expressed his discouragement in past fights where he felt like he was
the only guy
carrying all the weight
yeah.
of the promotion. And
Yeah.
so he's lauding all these shots other than a very, very unacceptable and distasteful comment. He's saying, hey, great job, keep promoting this thing. It's just ching, ching, ching every time. And so, absolutely.
I won't be surprised if the guy in the middle of the fight that he thinks he's got one handily doesn't do something to encourage a rematch. I would not be surprised. If he's making $350 million and he thinks I can make another $350 million in 6 months by fighting the same tomato can, let me make this interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it by the guy. If he thinks, I got this thing, I'll win it on points, let me go down. Let me go down and get up and win off the – let me do something that makes people want another one of these things in 8 months. I want another $350 million in 8 months from another one of these things. All right, 12th Man Roundtable coming up on 950 KJR. Okay, guys, help the morning show out. We're in dead last place in this little game that they like to run between the shows. And the way the way they're doing it this year is the team that finishes last loses their show, get fired. So help us out. We're in last place. You guys know the answer to this. Who's going to have the most yards rushing at the end of the preseason?
Oh, the preseason.
At the end of the preseason, which individual will have the most yards rushing?
Chris Carson.
Yeah, that's be my
Because he'll have the most chances.
He's got to be by far the biggest favorite for sure. I mean, they're going to give him every chance in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, Lacey will get 3 carries and Rawls will get like 5. I mean, there's not.
What
gonna
about
be much
Alex
reason to do
Collins?
that.
Now, tell them what your take of something that Pete Carroll did the other day. Go ahead.
Well, the other day he was asked about Carson, and he kind of just, he's doing great, and he wanted to get on to the next question. And right at that moment, it occurred to me that that's a head coach that's looking to try and hide a guy. And so would that potentially impact? I mean, these guys.
That's true. They did. Tremaine Pope happened to him last year. They didn't hide him.
The Jets grabbed him, right?
And he ended up leading the team in preseason rushing, and then the Jets took him when they tried to sneak him through practice squad on waivers.
But you still have to play the guy, right?
Sure.
See what you have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how much you can hide an NFL football player in these days. I mean, everybody knows who everybody is, I think. But, he will probably – I mean, there's also with rookies, Pete, I think, tries to downplay. Like, we can't talk to the rookies the first, 10 days of camp or whatever because he sort of wants the attention. He wants them to earn the attention kind of thing as well,
okay.
Which is something he's always done since going back to USC. So, but, yeah, I'd be shocked if Carson didn't play quite a bit in the preseason. I do think they got to figure out.
All right, so let's let our imaginations fly. You have an imagination, Greg?
I'll go to one.
Let's let our imaginations really go, and let's say he doesn't look like a practice squad player in the preseason. He looks like a running back, an NFL current roster running back, and he takes the opportunity and he runs with it. That would be at the expense of whom?
Alex Collins.
Or a receiver, or a lineman, or I redid my 53-man roster projection this week, and that's what I did. I kept Chris Carson and took Jordan Roos off, and just I just had him keep an extra running back on the idea that
could he play
really
special teams? Would he go down and tackle on special teams?
Have to find that out.
He better.
Yeah, I mean,
if he wants to make the team.
Right. So all right. So there you go, Slickhawk. We just were the 12th man roundtable has told us that it's got to be Carson who's going to be the.
But you had also said everybody else is going to pick Carson. You're in dead last, and you're trying to find somebody other than Carson.
Yeah,
then pick Alex Collins. They will be the two guys I think that will get the most because I do think they are going to. I do think that'll be a battle of who's the next sort of reliable running back after the top 3 guys, and they will try to figure out who that fourth guy is going to be.
Or Trevon Boykin.
Mitch had an interesting.
When he bails out on all his reads,
running for his life. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Mitch had a point, and I agree with it that. It seems like through the years with teams, you kind of have a certain stature before you get that grace of 2-3 carries for you and then you're done. Doesn't seem like Eddie Lacy has that certainly here with the Seahawks.
He doesn't yet, and I think they do want to see what condition is he in from the ankle? But that's going to be second, third preseason game more than this one coming up, which means his carry. But even when he does carry, he's not going to get a ton because when he's in the game, they'll want him in with the first team offensive line. They're not going to want undrafted free agents blocking for their $4 million investment at running back. So when Lacey does play and get whatever few carries he gets, it'll be early in games when the first team offense is in, which, again, as I mentioned a couple hours ago, won't be more than a drive or two Sunday.
Let's ask the ominous question that no one likes answering, but we'll ask it anyway. It seems like maybe not in every training camp, Bob, Greg, Hugh. It seems like often is the case, we get to the end, and somebody loses a job that surprises us, that we would have never guessed at the beginning of training camp. Either he loses a job or he gets traded because they're about to cut him, and we're like, whoa, who would have thought? I mean, you've been doing these 53-man Seattle Times things for years, and you had to have been surprised. You're no Joe Lunardi. I mean, you miss a couple here and there. Who's the guy? Who's the guy? Is there any way of knowing before the first game a name or two or three of guys that you're like, well, I don't know. If certain things fall the wrong way for that guy, it could be curtains for him.
I mean, it depends on how big a name you're looking for. I mean, like Ode Obusi, I don't know if that's a big name or not, or the free agent signee veteran guy. I mean, I don't think his spot is guaranteed per se. Okay. I think they like Jordan Roos is a young guy. Maybe if he really progressed and you can save a little bit of money there. I know the name everybody wants is Jermaine Kearse. Is there some way we can get Jermaine Kearse off the team? Everybody,
I'm not angry.
Every time I do anything receiver-wise, I can tell everybody wants me to say Jermaine Kearse is not going to make it. I just don't see it with him. I haven't gotten the sense that any of the young receivers are really making that big of a move yet. You know, if you watched the other day, the rotations they had, it was Doug and Paul Richardson and Jermaine basically with the first team the entire time, and essentially it looked like Richardson with the base and looked like Jermaine came in with the 3 receiver set, and so that was sort of the pecking order. And once Tyler Lockett comes back, he moves in there, and that's sort of your top 4 guys. And to me, it seems pretty definitive. That's the 4, and everybody else is pretty far away.
Okay.
I was trying to think if there's somebody on defense. Bradley McDougald, I think they really like him, so I don't see that. I don't know if there's a really real veteran there. I mean, it was Antoine Winfield the 1 year. You're right. I mean, that was the kind of the free agent pickup they had signed. And,
right, I remember that.
Suddenly didn't make it. And that was the year they were sort of so stacked in the secondary, and they just decided they wanted to keep some of the younger guys instead.
How about Mike Morgan? I mean, they didn't sign him all off season. He was a free agent until a couple of weeks ago. They had whatever reasons not to sign. They brought Garvin in. They brought Will Hoyt in. And both of them are playing at linebacker, first team ahead of Morgan so far. They just had Morgan out for a week.
Right.
But if they think they've gotten so much better at special teams and deeper that they may not need Mike Morgan after 7 years of having him here. Again, that's not a huge name, but that's a veteran that's been around.
Okay.
Nico Thorpe, who in the OTAs and minicamp was starting at right cornerback. Now Jeremy Lane gets hurt, and Nico Thorpe is the second-team left corner all of a sudden because Shaq Griffin's getting all the time at right cornerback.
Right.
Another veteran, not a big name, but a special teams guy, a fifth-year veteran. I don't see at this point, because the offensive line is still so shaky, that they're going to be a starter get cut. That is in previous years. A starter with the Seahawks starting experience getting cut. I just don't see it because of the lack of depth, especially across both lines, really, offense and defense.
12-man roundtable with Bob Condotta, Greg Bell, the guys that cover this team closer than anybody in town. We've been asking the question all morning, Bob, who are you most curious to see? And I'm using the word curious because I don't want to use excited. It may just be you're concerned. It may be you are excited. Curious to see running around out there a couple of 2 or 3 names. First of all, I guess we need to know who's going to play and who's not going to play. Is Luke Jokel going to play? Is Jeremy Lane going to play? What are your guesses on some of these guys?
Yeah, Jokel, I mean, I don't know. We'll know way more about that today. I don't want to guess on health yet because we're 5 days before the game, and I don't really know what. I think today we'll find out a lot more on where those guys are. Having gotten all the time they did, I would imagine most of those guys would start to come back today. Joko, they just held out for precautionary reasons, I think, for the most part. So they are going to want to see him. I mean, so I think he's got to get out there at some point. I don't think he can just not play the preseason. So
well, I'm talking about the first game.
I mean, but it would be a series or two. So I mean, I would think it's logical.
Okay.
Play. Chris Carson, by far, I think he's just the hype that's sort of been around him, the way Pete has pumped him up a few times, and the way other people have. I think for sure you want to see him. I mean, I think the entire rookie class is just going to be really interesting that way. I think the receivers, Amara Darbo, I think he's pretty much a lock to make the roster, but I don't feel like we've seen him a ton make a million plays out here yet, but maybe he's one of those guys that when the lights go on, you'll really see that more.
Yeah.
Trying to think of, I mean, all the young defensive backs, I mean, just kind of seeing how they do perform out there under that. The Chargers can fling it around a little bit, so that would be a little bit of a test there.
Well, Greg, you can pick up on that. I mean, he mentioned the rookies and the young guys, and he mentioned the backs, and it seems like when we went to the phone lines and the texting lines, it was there's a clear winner amongst Seahawk fans and who they're looking at, who they're curious to see, and that's number 26, featured, by the way, in the Seattle Times today, might be featured in the Tacoma News Tribune. What about number 26? Is he going to play, Shaq Griffin, is he going to play with the first teamers? Is he going to be lined up against the top wide receivers when Rivers is in the game throwing the ball around on Saturday? What are we going to see?
I think so. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Jeremy Lane, they won't rush him back from his nebulous soft tissue injury. I wrote before camp started that I thought that Shaq Griffin had the best chance of all the rookies to start beginning week 1 in Green Bay, both because of his talent, his size, his speed, and the situation at right cornerback. I think that it's still going to end up Lane as the nickel back and Shaq Griffin as the right cornerback. I think even in base defense, Shaq Griffin's going to be the right cornerback eventually, if not in week 1. That Jeremy Lane is much more suited to be inside as the nickel, and they drafted in the 3rd round Shaq Griffin to take that job sooner than later.
Hugh, your take on all of that.
I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. Why is Jeremy Lane a better nickel than he is an outside guy?
Well, I mean, you can start with stature, and speed. You tend to have the real burners that get outside. There's quicker guys in the slot, but guys that are big and or fast. The AJ Greens of the world, the real stallions of this league. Now they'll move them around, but it's a real problem when you play a single safety defense like Seattle. That guy's got to be able to handle a hoss on a go route, and everything breaks down if he cannot cover a fast guy on a go route. So you got to have some size, like Sherman does it with he's fast enough. Sherman, he's not blazing, he's fast enough, but he does it with size. But you have to have a plan for that guy. On a go route, and so Shaq Griffin is certainly from a body standpoint, from his size and his outright turn his hips and go and accelerate, catch up if you happen to be a little bit step behind. Can you get back into the play? Shaq Griffin looks much more like an outside corner than Jeremy Lane in my book. I think there's a ceiling on what Jeremy Lane can give you as a corner.
How intriguing is it, and how much will we see number 3 out there on Sunday? Probably only a series or two. Series or two.
Probably. I think they've usually done 2 in these first games. So.
Yeah. And Greg and I discussed it back at 7 o'clock. Bob, get your thoughts on it. It's been a long time since we've seen Russell Wilson, the old Russell Wilson. He got stepped on by Sue in the first game of the season, right? And then the second or third week was when the knee happened. Third week of the season was when the knee happened. He's now lost weight. So, I mean, you got to go back to January 2015? 16. January 2016 to see the elusive, running around, young, vibrant, exciting Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but the coaches aren't going to care that much about you. So they're going to want Russell to just get a series or 2. I'm just saying, they're seeing it out here, and they'll be fine with it. So they'll be fine if they need to wait.
But he looks that way to your eye when he's out here.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
I mean, I thought he was phenomenal on Monday. So he basically was perfect. I mean, he threw a couple of passes that guys had to adjust for a little bit, but his 3 incompletions were all one was a drop and 2 were basically one was a clear just tossing it out of the way. To just get away from pressure, and the other essentially was. The other was he sort of tried to complete it. But
not to rain on 53 days in a row without rain here, but the 2 completions, 2 of the bigger completions that Wilson had in that mock game, one to Jimmy Graham into the red zone and one a 50-some yard catch and run by C.J. Prosise came after what would have been sacks in real games. Ethan Posick was beaten off the right edge. On the next play, George Fant was beaten off the left edge by a third-team defensive end. That is still the issue. Maybe Wilson is healthier. If he doesn't get the pass protection they need, it doesn't quite matter that whatever receivers they have running down the field are not going to be able to get into their progressions if they don't have the offensive line, which I still don't see is fixed. It still remains the biggest, by far, issue on this team.
And the big practice where he had his quote breakout practice
Sunday.
He had a number of kind of eye-popping throws, but when you watch – he's taken 4 hitches, and he's thrown it 4 yards from the line of scrimmage, and you're saying, what offensive line are you purporting to be playing behind to be able to do that? I mean, I guess the Raiders have a great offensive line, the Cowboys have a great offensive line, but they don't have a great one here, and some of those throws are unrealistic even in 7-on-7.
All right, before I throw myself off of the first floor here, that's enough for the offensive line for today. Bob Condotta and Greg Bell, thank you guys. 12th Man Roundtable on 950 KJR.
I'm really tired of the same old thing. Things have become so mundane. I mean, your bedroom is just so cold. It's so cold, but I'm here to tell you, I got a strategy. We got to heat it up. Come on. Girl, get comfortable. We got to do something you never done before. Baby, not the usual. Tonight we getting unpredictable.
Do you think we did a good enough job, Hugh, with the final few moments that we have left before we go out there and enjoy practice today at the VMAC? Trying to communicate to people in Seattle and the Northwest who were patient enough to put up with us at 8 o'clock this morning. Did we communicate the passing of somebody that I would think that probably 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 of our listeners don't even know who he is, never heard his name in their life? Your former coach for the New England Patriots in the 1991, 90, and then 92 seasons, right?
Yes.
Have that right?
Yeah.
Dick McPherson, the passing of him yesterday at age 86. Did we do it justice? Trying to communicate to people what this guy was all like. The humility of this guy.
Because we were on the front end of it, and you'd have to be on the receiving end of that to judge that. I would think people would say, okay, there's relevance to the man. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He touched both of our lives, so we shared some time. Hopefully we didn't take away from more important things, but it was something that was weighing heavy on both of our hearts. I came in, I can get misty just thinking about the man. He's that type of guy. When I got married, I got